All right, I now reconvene the regular meeting, time being 6:41 PM. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, will you take roll call, please?
Trustee Cannon,
Here.
Trustee Daly,
Present.
Moyer,
Yes.
Trustee Teets,
Here.
Trustee Wiegand,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mason,
Here.
Mayor Shosse.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Are there any amendments to the agenda this evening? Any conflicts of interest with the agenda this evening? No? Okay, now is the time for public comment. Members of the public wishing to speak will be given 3 minutes. This is on non-agenda items. Please state your name for the record, and the time is yours.
Good evening, gentlemen. Better. Good evening, gentlemen. I'm Curtis Stumper. I live here in Wellington. I have a couple concerns on the construction of Main Street, the Main Street construction project. Real quickly, the storm drain, I know they're not taking into consideration all the water that comes off of Washington to Cleveland is drained into Cleveland, and it's not really being addressed. They think it's gonna go down 8 feet over, do a 90-degree, go 50 feet, and turn and go into this storm drain that they're building. They can't even get it go down the street and do a curve on 3rd Street and any, control. And the bump stops are 8 foot by 50 feet. It's a little excessive, I think, personally. And then there's some complaints about crossing, like the cross streets, and how fast, the vehicles are coming. My question is, how can you back out of a diagonal parking spot in the same street? You can't even go straight across. Come out and park and turn and go. Little attention for the town to know. And then start, yeah. And then I'm losing my interest in my building. One of the garage door access is being taken away by this construction of a historic building. I'm just curious if there's anything we can do. Talk to anybody about doing something about that. And are there any provisions made for the it was brought to my attention, provisions made by the construction damage to buildings? Vibrators and all the compactors and all the stuff that is going to vibrate all this stuff, all these brick buildings and stuff. Is there any compensation being taken into consideration for this project? And any compensation for businesses due to loss of income due to the construction? If there's anything that the town has addressed and thought about in this project? And then the snow removal, as the city putting it on the budget, because you can't now just CDOT will come through and just plows through and everything will go and sit there on Main Street. And we have no drainage because you'll have a storm drain, but I personally do a lot of drainage on my side of the street. I remove the ice and you can't see it going around the corner. You can't get the car to go down. If that storm drain is frozen, it's done. To have an ice rink for a Main Street. Does that make sense? Like I said, like the storm drain, you got almost 50 acres if you're on the north side, water drain into this system. And they're gonna run around the corner. It'd be real simple, put a culvert on each side. I was told it's about $10,000, but what would it cost to put a storm drain on that side or under Cleveland Avenue and take it away? Thank you. Is that my 3 minutes?
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thanks, Curtis.
Thank you.
Like I said, it's something that I can bring to your attention. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, can we wait one moment? We're having trouble connecting Lowry to the sound.
I can hear you now, Patty.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, now we have a presentation on the Boxelder Creek letter and map revision. Mr. Nathan Ewert.
Notice who are you?
All right, good evening, Mayor, Board of Trustees. Tonight, I'm going to give you a brief presentation on the Boxelder Creek Letter of Map Revision Project. This was a CIP funded back in 2023, just wrapped up this year. So to start, I'll launch into a little bit of a background on it, which is almost more complicated than the project itself. So the Larimer County Big Thompson Physical Map Revision Project was project started early in the 2010s as part of the larger FEMA risk map project. The goal of the project was to update floodplain boundaries and flood regulations along streams within Larimer County and the Big Thompson watershed. 2016, so project started 2010-ish. 2016, the first set of models came out along Boxelder Creek through town. Those models were released for review by stakeholders. Then again in 2021, they released another set of models over the same stretch. I think what that was doing was incorporating the comments that they had received from that 2016 model set. It's important to note that the 2021 model used the same terrain data that the 2016 model used. So we didn't update the terrain data, we just updated, based off the comments and some mapping methodology. The 2021 version of the model showed impacts to Buffalo Creek, Boxelder Commons, and the Harvest Village residential communities within Wellington. Now you can see the timeline here. So while all the hydraulic models were getting revised from 2016 to 2021, development continued within Wellington. In 2014, the final Boxelder Commons plat was approved. And then in 2017, the Harvest Village Townhomes development was approved. The final design and construction documents for both of these residential developments took into account that 2016 model set that was released for review. So, which means that when these two developments went to final construction, those construction documents took into account the base flood elevations and the floodplain boundaries from that 2016 model set. So they had intended for those developments to be elevated above the floodplain. Let's jump into floodplain impacts. In 2021, when this model was released for the town to review, it was noted by staff that 67 properties had been moved into the floodplain. And these 67, this is only in Boxelder Commons and Harvest Village. It's also important to note that 10 properties were moved into the floodplain. The differentiation between floodway and floodplain. Floodplain you can construct in, there are restrictions to that. The key point that we looked at was when your home, when your house is within the floodplain, if you have a federally backed mortgage, you are required to purchase floodplain insurance through the National Flood Insurance Program.
Mr. Ewert, can you speak a little bit closer to the microphone? People are online are having a hard time hearing. Thank you.
more restrictive. Generally, construction within the floodway is not allowed unless there's been a no-rise certification. And if a property and structure has been mapped into the floodplain, if that structure is ever substantially damaged, it's not allowed to be reconstructed, which is a key point. So the letter of map revision study. In 2021, town staff met with CWCD quite often, discussing how to revise the floodplain through this area of town. The general consensus that we heard was that we needed to complete a letter of map revision study in order to officially revise the floodplain boundaries and the floodway boundary. So in 2021, 2022, during that budget cycle, we programmed in a 2023 capital improvement project to complete this letter of map revision study. In mid-2023, the town contracted with engineering consultants to complete that study. And the study boundaries were going to be from Jefferson Avenue to Ronald Reagan, which encompasses Boxelder Commons and the Harvest Village Commons. The results of the study showed that we could move 45 properties within Boxelder Commons out of the floodplain. We could also move 7 townhomes within Harvest Village out of the floodplain. And we were also able to move all 10 properties and 2 structures out of the floodway. It was something we were really trying to do. You can note there that last point, unfortunately, I couldn't get the viewpoint for station out of the floodplain, but we did get it out of the floodway eventually. Could help with future flood there. So current project status on September 10th, 2024, FEMA completed the review and comment period, and a letter of map revision was issued to the town. The new mapping can be used currently as the best available data and for all flood insurance policies and renewals in the affected area. If Larimer County PMR is ever finished and those maps go effective, they should show the revised floodplain boundaries from our letter study. With that, I do have question slides. I would like to point out on this slide, there's a few resources for homeowners who may be located within the floodplain. Colorado, CWCD has a really good website called coloradohazardmapping.com, where you can go and you can type in your address and you can see the floodplain across your property, and it will show the old floodplain and the new Larimer County PMR floodplain. However, I checked it tonight and it does not reflect the Lomer results. So it's not super helpful for those residents. I also have a link to the town's website where we have the electronic copies of the Lomer maps. And you can also contact Public Works if you want to just go over the hard copy maps there, which is maybe the way to go because the Lomer maps are fairly confusing. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ewert. Questions from the board, and just a reminder, we'll be keeping comments and questions of 5 minutes. Trustee Teets?
So you said that the town's viewpoint lift station is still in the floodplain. Was there anything else that remained in that floodplain as far as structures?
Well, not on the town side. There were, so 67 minus 52, so there's 15 homes that are still located within the floodplain. The majority of those are in Boxelder Commons, and there's a couple up in town, not town, but north of Jefferson.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Moore?
No questions.
Thank you. Trustee Wiegand?
Appreciate this. It's pretty interesting. So you said there's, what, only a couple that's still left in the floodplain that moved over from the floodway?
There's 15 homes still left in the floodplain.
There-
Everything's been moved out of the floodway.
Okay, nothing on that. Okay. That should be it.
Trustee Kim?
Yeah, one of the questions I have, thank you for this this presentation, by the way. Going through a LOMAR process is pretty involved, and I appreciate all the work that the town and this board has done to get this process complete and have a more accurate reading to our residents. For those people that are still within a floodplain, outside of posting information on the town's website, are we having any plans to contact these homeowners individually to give them a notice, official notice from the town that their property has been assessed to be in a floodplain? And here's the resources, including flood insurance and
Not specific to that, as part of the review and comment period, every home that had the floodplain changed across its boundary, whether it impacted that structure or not, received a letter directing them to the town's website to review the maps. We don't have, I guess I don't have plans to contact those who have remained in the floodplain. Back in 2021, we did host a online webinar provided by CWCD to go over the flood insurance requirements. They still have those slides because the NFIP changed kind of how they were doing floodplains at the time. And so they requested that every community that was impacted by this project host this webinar. So I do have those slides available, and I could make those public and put them on the website.
I think updating the website is a great idea, but I also believe that, you know, people don't necessarily go to the website on a regular basis or even an occasional basis. And I don't know the board's feelings on this, but if I was a homeowner in a floodplain, I would like to have some kind of notice, you know, and it wouldn't be anything to identify which those specific homeowners are, and to draft a letter that could be explaining the process, why they're receiving this letter, and here's the resources they can attain, and additional information can be found on the, you know, we can craft a letter, but that notice, I think, would be important. It also shows that we are reaching out and letting people know what's going on within their community and what's impacting their lives.
Sure. Yeah, it's like I said, it's 15.
Mhm.
There's other, you know, other homes like up in Buffalo Creek, and there's a few down in the meadows who are also getting mapped into the floodplain.
Right. Right.
It may be worthwhile to wait until PMR gets a little further along, but the 15 affected by our loan, you know, for sure. Yeah.
And might even be a good idea to notify those people who were initially notified a couple of years ago that they were in the floodplain. And guess what? You're no longer in the floodplain. So
Right.
if you took out flood insurance, you can cancel that policy. Thank you. I'd say something.
Thank you.
He's probably gonna say the
Okay,
exact
yep.
same thing I am.
Trustee Wiegand.
Right. The main thing you want to do is if you do have flood insurance, you can contact them. They can rerun the zone and see exactly where you're at. Because mortgage company is not going to let you cancel it before you're actually out of it.
That was pretty much what I was gonna say. Insurance will actually already notify them.
Not necessarily.
Well, if they have a policy
Well-
already.
Well, if they have a policy, I think a lot of times they may change the zone rating. But I would have them reach out and actually talk to the insurance company. They will tell them.
Thank you. Trustee Daly,
No questions. Thank you for the presentation.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Also, no real questions. I think Trustee Cannon kind of hit the gist of what I was going to comment on is just, you know, what can we do to inform these residents, whether they are or are not, and that sort of thing. So appreciate that, and thank you for the presentation.
Yeah, thank you for doing this and taking it underway, and good presentation, and yeah, let's reach out to those residents. Thank you.
Can we pause for just a second? We want to check volume.
Yes,
Have we heard anything else, Trustee Daly?
Slightly better, I think. So if anybody's speaking up here going forward,
Yeah, the mic's not on.
oh.
Yeah, it's not, it's just,
Speak very loudly so people online can hear you.
yes, we are waiting on our $40,000 from Comcast for that AV grant. Once it's received, they have told me that they'll be sending it any day.
Perfect.
So once we get that, then we can start working on updating this audio visual here in the board chambers. Yes, it is exciting. Sorry. Yeah, our mics are hot.
Can we sacrifice that mic right there at the end for public comment?
I think. Where does it?
Is it plugged in? Whatever got loose. Mm-mm, not yet. Yeah, this is moved.
Visual specialist.
Yes.
That's why he makes the big money.
Yay. Okay, now we're in.
Thank you, Mayor.
Hello?
Mayor Josie. All the things he can do, Martina. I like the vacuum, that's nice.
We got a.
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right. They couldn't hear. I'm like, I don't know what else to do. Okay,
Um,
spectacular.
Clerk, will you please read the title for the consent agenda?
All right. October 22, 2024 regular meeting minutes. Resolution number 54-2024, a resolution of the Town of Wellington, Colorado, authorizing the temporary closure of portions of State Highway 1/Cleveland Avenue within the Town of Wellington during the annual Parade of Lights event on December 7, 2024. Contract for outside counsel for utility franchise agreements. Resolution number 55-2024, a resolution approving renewal of the lease of the parking lot at 3736 Cleveland Avenue. And last, resolution number 58-2024, a resolution calling for a special meeting on November 19, 2024.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion on the consent agenda?
I move to approve this consent agenda.
I second.
Clerk, make it a roll call, please.
Trustee Cannon? Trustee Daly?
Yes.
Trustee Moyer?
Yes.
Trustee Teets?
Yes.
Trustee Wiegand?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mason?
Yes.
Mayor Shosse?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, on to action items. Clerk, will you please read the title for item G1?
Ordinance number 11-2024, an ordinance establishing fees to be charged by the Town of Wellington, Colorado for utility services.
Thank you. And then Ms. Megan Smith, Deputy Director of Public Works, will present on this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Trustees. Megan Smith, Deputy Director of Public Works. I'm here this evening presenting on our 2025
We adjusted so many things.
Let's see how that works. I'm not going to touch anything. I am here this evening before you with two ordinances. I am going to present, the presentation that you have before you will cover background and topics for both ordinances, both related to water and wastewater usage rates and also water and wastewater capital investment fees. So this is round 3 of presentations related to 2025 proposed utility rates and fee increases. I was before the board for a work session in November, it's November now, September 24th, and then again at a regular meeting on October 22nd. I did want to make sure that is stated. So if there's anybody listening at home or here in the audience this evening that would like to go back and review any of those board meeting recordings or packet material, they know to go review that. September 24th and October 22nd were the dates of those presentations. So we do have before you, this is a similar presentation to what we've seen before, but I did kind of condense it just a touch, so there's not quite as many slides this evening. But we will cover some of the background, how we got to where we are right now. We'll talk about those 2025 proposed rates and capital investment fees, review a little bit of customer cost impact, and then review those financial projections, 5-year financial projections for both the water and the wastewater funds. So starting again with this background, the primary purpose. So we did embark on a 2022, so you tell me if you can't hear me and I'll step back forward, but I worry that if I get too close, that's when it starts staticking. In 2022, we embarked on a rate and fee study at the direction of the Board of Trustees to be ensuring that we're reviewing in a holistic fashion, not just the usage rates as had been done in a previous year, but also the capital investment fees for both the water and the wastewater fund. The primary purpose of that study was to ensure financial sustainability of the utilities and ensure that cost recovery is happening proportionately across all customer classes. So we went under contract with Raftellus in April of 2022. One of the first things that was done upon that contracting is that we formed a utility rate structure roundtable group. That rate structure roundtable helped review the values and principles that shaped the rate structures that were then brought forward to the Board of Trustees for consideration at the end of towards the end of that study. The study did include, I'm going to highlight some of the key things. There's a broader list here, but that study did include a financial cash analysis and the development of models for both the water and the wastewater fund. We are still using those, have been using them for the last 3 years. A cost of service analysis, again, looking at identifying those costs across customer classes, ensuring that we're recovering those costs proportionately and equally as to the cost of providing service across those customer classes. And it also included an update of the water and wastewater capital investment fees, making sure that we are capturing the cost that it takes to reserve capacity in our system for new development in the future. Right, so we can ensure that we're spreading those costs across new development as appropriate. We're familiar with this slide at this point, but it is something that I think is important to review. We do have a couple of very driving expenditures in both the water fund and the wastewater fund. Starting with the water fund here, that North Poudre irrigation company lease agreement and those cost increases that agreement has seen over the last decade or so. Again, about a 640% increase in a 10-year period starting in 2013. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. I will say that we had an anticipated payment in the 2024 budget of a lot over $2.8 million, so about $2.87 million. I do want to highlight that estimate was based on an assumption that we'd be using up to about 1,000 acre feet this year through that contract agreement. We actually have completed water year 2024. Water year 2025 started November 1. So we were able to submit that end of year volume to North Poudre just last week. It was about 810 acre feet. So that's pretty significant, even with all other assumed variables within that rate structure or that invoicing formula. That number is going to be far lower than 2.87. I mean, it would still be over 2 million, but not close to 3, closer to 2 than to 3. So that's positive. We should see that invoice before the end of next week, if it's feasible to be included, so that it can be reflected in the budget and end of year numbers that you would see in that final budget presentation that's anticipating coming next Tuesday. We will work to do that. I can't guarantee that we'll have it before then. Then in the, I cannot leave out our state revolving fund loan that we took out for the water treatment plant expansion project. That loan closed in May of 2019. Total loan amount of almost $25 million, and we do have an annual payment of just almost 1.5 million, so 1.46 million. That does vary within a few dollars every year based on repayment schedule, amortization schedule. Similarly, in our wastewater fund, we closed on a state revolving fund loan for that project funding source in May of 2022 with a total loan amount of $48.5 million, and that annual payment hovers around $2.47 million annually. So again, this is really highlighting some of those highest single fund expenses. I do want to talk, just going back 1 second to that North Peru lease agreement, and I don't intend to beat this dead horse, but I did want to mention that over the last 5 years, I was going back and doing some analysis, over the last 5 years, that single line item that falls in our operating expense. So it's difficult, you can't really peel that out from the fund projection that's included in your packet material tonight, as it is one of the numbers that's included in the operation and maintenance expense. Over the last 5 years, that single line item has hovered between 40 and 50% of that operational expense line. So one single line item, and that includes salaries and benefits, everything that's operational related. So it's a lot. So moving forward into our proposed rates and capital investment fees, just taking the wind out of everyone's sails. We are proposing a 5% increase across both water and wastewater usage rates and those water and wastewater capital investment fees. I do have summarized in the next sets of slides current fees across all of our customer classes, and then also the proposed 2025 fees are then captured in this kind of purple font with a box. I do want to land here just for a moment on the residential water, which includes both single family and multifamily residential. I did want to remind us, one of the reasons I spoke of some of these previous presentations that we've done in that September packet material, September 24th packet material, there was a memo that was included that reviewed the cost of service analysis. So that process that was gone through around how do we assign costs to produce and deliver water to varying types of customer classes and the varying ways that they use their water, peak demand, daily demand, total demand. Those topics were analyzed through that process, and that's how we got to this ability to have these differing rate structures across our 4 different classes. And as a reminder, as you'll see here, we have single family residential, we have multifamily residential, we have non-residential, otherwise known generally as commercial, and then we have irrigation only. Those are our 4 customer classes currently and for water service. And there is, I know there's been a lot of conversation around the difference in costs that are highlighted on this slide right here, that you can see that there is a difference in costs and rates for single family residential versus multifamily residential. And there's a lot of reasonings behind that. And I'll highlight just a couple related to, there is economies of scale, right? So there is a lower per unit administrative cost for serving a multifamily tap than there is a single family tap. As you can imagine, you've got 10 units behind one tap, that's one tap with 10 units as opposed to 10 taps for 10 single family units. So processing, payment processing, billing, customer service calls, we generally get customer service calls related to a tap, not related to the units behind a tap, as they're not, that's the property owner's situation. We deal with things from the tap behind that or towards our system. There is just the general cost recovery structure associated with, there is a lower per unit usage and a lower peak demand. And this was seen in our data, but it's also a national trend. I mean, this is what is typically seen. Multifamily units typically see a lower average usage as well as a lower peak demand per unit. So not per tap, of course, because per tap, they're going to see far more volume for that tap, but for the number of units that are served behind it, per unit, that's much lower. That generally results in a different pricing tiers that align with lower operational costs per unit. So that's fundamentally where those different structures came from. And I do want to kind of highlight that this really is a policy decision, and it is something that absolutely the board can visit again when we go into our rate and fee study in 2025. If there's a desire to look at structuring how we apply different tier structures to different groups and customer classes. It's absolutely something that can be reviewed as part of the next rate and fee update in 2025 with that full study that we're proposing. So again, two more of our customer classes here, commercial and irrigation water rates. Similar, these two customer classes overlap in that our base rates are the same. They're based functionally on just the size of tap, but then their tier rates are really different. So in our irrigation system, we implemented in 2023 this seasonal rate structure that is creating a pretty large swing in cost or in rate per 1,000 gallons in the summer months, those irrigation months, and then compared to the winter months. And also you will see a pretty significantly different tier structure for those commercial users than you do for a single family or a multifamily. We are proposing, again, 5% increase across our wastewater usage rates and base rate. And then also 5% increase on our capital investment fees. You see those broken apart here by single family, multifamily, residential, and then also those commercial and irrigation capital investment fees. Now I have pulled together, I did not include as many slides. If folks that are listening are curious to look at additional comparisons, they can look back at the October 22nd meeting. I was trying to hone because that was like 40 slides. I was trying to bring this down to 20 slides if I could. I did want to highlight, this is kind of a cost comparison that I pulled together for a single family residential with a typical winter and a typical summer bill. So that typical winter is 3,000 gallons usage. And that typical summer is 15,000 gallons usage. When this is what we see, even in consideration of that in the summer, we have, these are a typical summer usage for folks on potable irrigation. So this is not averaging in all users in the summer. This is what our typical summer bill looks like for folks using potable irrigation. And this included, just so you can see the total dollars together, because of course it's not just water or wastewater in your bill. There's a couple different stormwater fees included as well. So I put all of that in here so you could sort of see what that anticipated difference would look like. I do have a summary here, though, of some of the additional analysis that we did looking at some commercial impacts, 3/4 inch tap commercial, 1.5 inch tap commercial, and also 1.5 inch irrigation tap, and what kind of, with some volumes in there, how that would affect. Now, please keep in mind these commercial and irrigation taps. Well, the commercial do not include stormwater just in these numbers, as the stormwater charge for commercial varies based on the acreage and the amount of impervious area on property. So moving forward, what does this look like for our water and wastewater funds? So I do want to first start with talking about some changes that you'll see in these fund balance projections, then changes from the October 22nd presentation. We were able to feel comfortable enough at this point in receiving the final invoices from Hensel Phelps and our construction team at the water treatment facility construction project, expansion project, that we feel comfortable realizing about $450,000 in savings from that expansion project. So that expense has been reduced essentially by $450,000, both in this presentation and these fund numbers that you see, and also in the full budget presentation that Mr. Director David will be bringing forward shortly, and Ms. Garcia. We identified, as we were kind of diving into this, we identified an incorrect application of a growth assumption in the model. And that was corrected. We also updated overhead transfers. We were finally far enough along in the budget process for 24 and 25 that we were able to update our anticipated overhead transfer amounts for end of year 24, and then also for the projected amounts for 25. This includes, and you'll hear it again in the budget conversation, but there's been an increase in benefits costs that's being reflected in here. We also had some modified CIPs for the water fund, so capital projects. We were able to reduce spending on 2 projects, and then we delayed 1 project altogether, pushed it out a year. And then in the wastewater fund, we also were able to update those overhead projections for 24 and 25. And just for reference, for those that are listening, I'm realizing that doesn't mean a lot, the overhead transfers. So the water and wastewater funds, as well as the stormwater fund and the street fund that have sources of revenues outside of the general fund. They provide transfers back to the general fund to cover services that the general fund provides for these funds, such as IT, HR, finance, all things that we would have to contract out, billing, right? That our billing falls in our finance department. All things that we would have to contract out otherwise, assuming we were an independent, let's say, district. We would have to bring in our own finance director and our own AP department and our own, all of those things. So we essentially transfer money to help offset the cost of that because they provide a significant amount of services to the water and wastewater fund. That's what those overhead transfers are. Apologize. But we did also reduce the operation and maintenance budget for the wastewater fund by $35,000 to be exact. As we get closer to the end of the year and we're able to hone in how things are operating with the new facility, because it's virtually online now and has been for about a month or two. Being able to hone in on some of the chemical costs that we think we're going to have next year. And we're able to reduce some of those operating costs for next year in 2025. So kind of in summary, some of the key takeaways that are included in these financial projections beyond the kind of changes from last time. Again, you'll see in the water fund, the $6 million intra-fund loan. That is a loan coming from our raw water fund within the same broader water fund into the water operations, water capital fund. And it does include a 10-year repayment schedule starting next year in 2025. And I can highlight that when we get into the fund balance pages. We are including general fund transfers for both 2025 and for both 2024 and then again in 2025 with very much the hope that they will not have to continue forward. We're not including any assumed transfers for any years beyond that. Some things that did change from that October 22nd presentation is we are seeing combined fund deficit spending in the water fund in 2024 through 2027. That previous presentation, it looked a little bit indefinite of deficit spending. So that has tightened up and comes out of it. We do see a combined fund balance go negative in 2027 for just the 1 year. And again, that's 2 years out. There's a lot of things that can change between now and then, but that's where things are looking at right now, which is far better than when I was in front of you less than a month ago. So wastewater fund, also those same general fund transfers. We do see that in both of these, I did not highlight this, both the water and the wastewater fund, we are meeting not just staying in the black, but we are meeting our reserve policy balance for both funds in 2025. We also see a combined fund deficit spending in 24 through 27. And in that fund, that combined fund balance remains positive. So that actually is a good thing. And then we do have included in here, I have 2 slides that are a snapshot of our combined water enterprise fund, followed by the combined wastewater enterprise fund. Couple of things just to highlight. You can see there on this water fund, you can see there in line 9, you'll see that $6 million influx listed in the sources of funds. That is that intra-fund loan. Then you can see down in line 15 under uses of funds, you'll see that repayment, $600,000, so a 10-year repayment schedule. Benefit of an internal loan, we don't have to charge ourselves interest. We can have great terms on a situation like that, but we are wanting to ensure that we capture that repayment, that we ensure that it is coming back, and we know exactly how long it's going to take to come back. And then wastewater fund. One thing I did want to note here, line 6 does show grant funding. We were awarded a grant for some upgrades to our Viewpoint lift station. We have some design happening next year in 2025. So you see part of that money, I think it was a total of $608,000 thereabouts. You'll see some of that money next year to be utilized for design, and then the remaining portion of that in 2026 for the actual construction of that upgrade project. So I do want to talk a little bit about some next steps, as we will have next steps. This is an ongoing process. It will be something that gets reviewed a couple times a year, every year. I do want to highlight a couple of things, as I mentioned, about the general fund transfers and it being something that we're not continuing to model beyond 2025. The general fund at this point has transferred in more than $2.8 million already in 2022 through the end of 2024 into the water and wastewater funds. We're looking at anticipating a little over $1 million again next year. So that's over 3.8, pushing close to $4 million over 4 years. And we can't continue that, or the general fund's gonna be in a difficult spot. I do want to highlight, though, that $4 million is essentially a revenue source that was not have to be borne by our ratepayers over these last 4 years. So it has been, when you put that together in that amount, that's a lot of money, and it's, essentially about, half a year or more in the water fund of revenue, of an annual revenue. It's what was more than that in the wastewater fund. So these are not insignificant transfer amounts, grants, offsets, however we want to phrase that, is the technical term, gifts for that matter, from the general fund to those enterprise funds. But we're looking to stand on our own 2 feet and need to be able to do that for the health of the town. We are continuing these ongoing contract renegotiations with North Pooter. We will have an upcoming executive session to discuss the status of that a bit further. We work really hard every day to ensure capital projects and operational cost savings wherever we can. Water treatment plant expansion project is a good example. We would have loved to have brought home more money than that, but we were really there's something about $500,000 that everybody wanted to get over the $500,000 mark. I don't think we're quite going to make it. But we do our best to bring home and save money every place we can. But we also are recommending, and it is included in the budget for 2025, to move forward with a rate and fee study update for 2025. As we have wrapping up completion of these projects, we can realize some of the savings on those larger projects. We can understand where we are with some of the loan processes. It's time to review that and ensure that we're on the right track forward from there. So with that, do you have any questions related to, and again, this presentation really is for G1 and G2 action items this evening, both usage rates and fees and the capital investment fees. And I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you. Trustee Moore?
No questions, but I do have comments for later.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Teets?
I do have a few questions. I guess one I just noticed, because this does look different than what we had previously been presented. On the water utility, the combined water enterprise fund, the line number 22 in the document that we see now, 26, says that we will be $6.3 million in the negative in 2029. But the one that's demonstrated here now says $2.0 million. Do we know where that huge difference came from?
Yeah, a significant portion of this. So you're saying the one before?
The last packet that was presented to us stated we'd be 6.3 million negative.
The one prior to the modeling?
Yeah. So that was, well, and just to clarify, so that was, that would be 6.38 million under our proposed reserve target.
Mm-hmm.
So just to clarify that, 3.8 million actually negative. Not that that's.
Right, but now it's saying it'll be positive.
And that is based mostly on the growth assumption that was being miscalculated fundamentally. And then also with that comes some other varying changes. As you'll see, most of the investment income would have increased just a little bit because that's based on a function of how much money you have in the bank. So if we have more money in the bank, you're going to get more investment income from that. There are some, again, we reduced, we had $450,000 influx this year to our bottom line by realizing that savings. So it's $500,000. And that's, that's why I do, going back to the slide before that, these updated financial projections where I've italicized and underlined. But these are projections based on modeling efforts. And we are for sure looking at rates and budget for 2025, but it's always in our best interest to try and project forward as best we can. But things do change often.
Got it. Thank you. So this would be something that I would propose. So I don't have any more questions related to this, but I do have a discussion that I'd like to have after.
Thank you. Trustee Wiegand.
No major questions. I would like to see when we do the rate schedule again, is trying to even up the amount of cost between single family and multifamily. You know, a gallon is a gallon is a gallon. I mean, I know it's the projection of what each gallon costs to deliver, but as far as the treatment goes, it all is the same, I believe, correct? And the only thing you're talking about different would be the delivery part and the distribution of it.
No, there's going to be, so if our peak demand is driven by our single family residential, the sizing of our treatment facility and the
Right.
costs associated with operating that at scale is driven by single family residential. And so if multifamily, and we absolutely can review this, though. I
Yep.
don't want to, it's a policy decision. It can be reviewed 100%.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Cannon.
No questions, but I'll participate in the discussion.
Thank you. Trustee Daly.
Same for me, thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem.
No questions.
Thank you very much. Now we will open this up for public comment. Members of the public wishing to speak will be given 3 minutes. Please state your name at the podium for the record.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Carmen. I live in Park Meadows. Just like to say that after several conversations by email and in person with the town, I appreciate the legacy of neglect that you guys have inherited. But it's still a problem. As far as I'm concerned, the ongoing transfers should continue as long as it's practical. Because again, this is an issue that has been neglected for a long time. And again, I recognize that you guys have inherited that. I think the other issue, which I know you're working on, is a renegotiation of the water contract. Again, that was a neglect that goes back to probably when you were around. And it's something that needs to be addressed and should be top priority. Not only renegotiating that agreement, but a second water source so that the town has a little bit more leverage. And then the final thing I'll say, and I'm going to continue to beat this drum, I appreciate you joining the band, but single family homes bear 60% of the difference between single family homes and multifamily is 60%. I get what I'm hearing, and it's at a base level, there's some reasonableness to what I'm hearing, but at 60% difference makes no sense at all. I can see the base rates being different, and frankly, keeping that at a significant difference makes sense because I get it. But as far as usage goes, and everything that I've heard from the town and everything that I've heard from you guys going back to July or whenever it was that this all started and blew up, the argument has been about consumption. And consumption is consumption. I don't care if you're running a shower in a multifamily shower or in a single family shower. If you're running the shower, you're running the shower. And so that rate study can't be done soon enough. And I just don't think I have to say this, but I'm going to continue beating the drum until that gets fixed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Betty Aragon Metotis, and I am here as well to echo beating the drum, so to speak. I live with my husband in a single family home, and these water rates, I know that it's affecting other families because I'm hearing it, but it is definitely affecting our family. We love Wellington. We don't want to move. We're not going to move, but then it's a choice of what do we sacrifice? One of the things that I heard tonight and that really hit home for me was the health of the town. The health of the town is being stressed with the water rates. I'm seeing the stress in so many families, and it's affecting us as well. The stress is incredibly worrisome for us of what do we do? We talk about the consumption, we're eliminating watering our lawn for fear that the HOA is going to come and give us a ticket for that. Our lawn looks like crap, which really makes me feel badly because I don't want my neighbors to feel like we're not trying to keep up. But again, what do we sacrifice? We drink bottled water. We've eliminated how we do laundry, the dishwasher. And yet this last month, our water bill was still really high. And it was like, how can it possibly be high when we're cutting everywhere we can? So what else do we need to do? This is really impacting our community. It's impacting families that live here. And I don't want to have to continue being stressed. If there is truly a way that you can really revisit or review these water schedules, these water rates, I'm asking you, please review them because it's impacting our community in such a negative way. And I understand, I do. I understand that there has to be increases here and there, but passing them on to our community and people that live in single family, we're in a single family home, we shouldn't have to pay the same rate. I don't know where else to cut, but I'm here simply to say, please, if there's a way to review the structure of this tier system, I am asking if you would please review it and take into consideration the impact of the health of our community, because it is a major stressor. So thank you for allowing me to come and speak. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rose Francis. I'm in Viewpoint. I'm just gonna keep it quick. There's one thing I wanted to say. I think back in August or September, when the whole water conversation first started, one of the things I heard quite often was, this is mainly a summer issue when you're irrigating your lawn. If this 5% increase, and I understand the, as Mr. Carmen put it, the issue that you guys have inherited is not an easy one to fix. But I want to point out that if a continued 5% increase continues over all of these years, the complaining is not just going to be a summer issue. It is going to be a year-long issue, because a $13 increase in 1 year for summer is going to be a $20 increase in 2 years. It's going to increase each year. So in the winter, it's going to be much, it's going to be worse to where we're going to be complaining all year round. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, no more further public comment on that. All right, time for board discussion on this. Trustee Moyer, you said you had some comments you would like to?
I do.
Perfect. Go for it.
I'm sorry, am I really loud?
No.
I'm very loud to myself. Okay. So I just want to say, the comment was made that this conversation did not start in August or September. This conversation began years ago. This is not a comfortable conversation for anyone sitting on this board. We are doing everything that we can behind the scenes to rectify the situation. I would ask anyone on the board who lives in a single family home to raise your hand. Mine's raised. Absolutely. So for someone to say that they understand, they get it, they don't. There's a lot of misinformation going around online. There is absolutely a misunderstanding of what the situation is. I work in affordable housing. I work to make life more affordable for every single human being that I come in contact with. The leader of the drum beating is stirring up controversy and unnecessary fear. How many multifamily homes compared to single-family homes do we have in this community? What size are those taps? How much volume goes through them? What is the cost of servicing those compared to the single-family homes? I ask you that just because I rely and I trust the experts that have taken the time to get years of education and expertise to be able to provide our town with the best advice and leadership moving forward in this. Yes, it's not our problem. We did not create this, but we are trying to solve it for you. I'm really disappointed with the quality of information I've seen circulating online. Our inboxes have been flooded with comments, and I don't blame you. You've been misled. This, I believe, is to create a further divide and to further future campaigns. So please, I ask you to go to the actual source, go to the experts for your information, and do not accept someone's information and misinformed interpretation of the information. And in reference to the new construction and development, bringing online these new facilities will allow us to increase economic development, bringing in new businesses and new tax dollars to help rectify the situation. Also, our new construction of homes will allow us to use those fees to fund our budget. I invite you to look at our budget and see what happens if we don't bring in this new construction. Please do. You guys, we're all in this together. I promise you, we are doing absolutely everything that we can, and you really need to trust us. And if you don't, that's fine. Go to the packets, go to the meeting videos, and look for yourself and educate yourself. Please do not take online as your end all be all source of information, because I promise you, it is not 100% correct. And that is all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Teets.
Yes, so I will start off this by saying that we absolutely encourage anyone who wants to share anything and any kind of information they want to. Us as trustees cannot limit someone's ability to make a public comment in a public forum. I actually was privileged of being CC'd on Mr. Harmon's emails from the town of Wellington, and I'm aware he had meetings with the town of Wellington. So I know that the information he has gathered and received has come directly from the horse's mouth. So I don't want to discredit items that you speak of, because I know you've had these meetings and you've had direct emails with Ms. Garcia. So I just want to make sure that I make that aware now, because I don't want to spread misinformation about someone saying there's misinformation being spread. So to that, so what I'm looking for is, this is not a fix-all and not an end-all be-all. I do have a bunch of public comment that was sent to me, but I think it's more related to budget, so I will share it at that time. But with this is, I'd like to propose the water rates for 2025. I'd like to request the base rate be equaled out balance among user classes. This means that until we get to where we get our rate fee structure done, it's not going to be a significant amount, but there will be a more balanced structure, and everyone will feel like everyone's paying the base rate accordingly. And until we have additional numbers from the 2025 proposed study that would prove differently, this is what I have found. When paying North Poudre Irrigation's invoice annually, we are not charged differently according to the tap we utilize. When processing our water at our water treatment plant, we do not clean the water differently according to the tap we are delivering that water to. It is all potable when it's treated. When delivering water from the plant to taps in town, the only variation I can separate out, and according to a water engineer I actually met with, is the distance away from the water treatment plant is what will affect the cost of this delivery. So this cost is not related to the type of tap, but rather the additional cost in getting the water delivered related to the distance away from the plant. So I'd also like to propose the same for the wastewater rates, where we equal it out until we enter into that next rate study. This we can balance out without having to change any budget numbers, because the numbers won't change. It just balances the cost of that base rate equal across all of the 4 rate users. So that wouldn't mean that any money is changing. All it's doing is getting reassigned in there. So the base rate wouldn't change per se. The base rate wouldn't change if you were just equaling it out between all the taps. So you have a number that is assigned. We were told this is what it costs to process this water and deliver this water. And it was my understanding that that cost involved processing, paying for, and receiving that water to send it out. Correct me if I'm wrong. And that's what we base the base rate off of.
So your base rate actually it's more the opposite. So the
Okay.
base rate captures your fixed costs that are generally the same within the customer class categories. Billing, meter reading, infrastructure, that's how come that, and your variable cost is what's included in the varying price of the tier structure. That cost of North Pooter, that's really captured in how much water you use. You're paying for the cost of the water and treating the water. The base rate is really capturing those non-varying costs, the ones that are pretty consistent within a customer class.
Okay, so I'll have to go back and watch how that was explained and when we had the water roundtables, because it was my understanding that that was just the basic cost of delivering the service. So that's what supported everything up to operation costs and everything like that. So I will go back through and look at that video again. And I'm not suggesting any changes to the tier rates until we receive feedback from the requested 2025 rate study for all users. This way we can proceed with the action item presented with an amendment and vote. So I did, that is my one big ask when it comes to this, is when you look online, and I know it was stressed that people shouldn't be going online and reading information and shouldn't be listening to people stressing concerns and items like that. I've heard it regularly. But at the end of the day, that is where the people is they are on social media right now and they are stressing their concerns heavily. And for us to say that only a few people are affected by this, I've seen hundreds of comments of people being affected by this. It's not the same person commenting 100 times. It's multiple residents saying that this is pushing them to a point. They're using gyms to shower in. They're literally going to their gym and that is the place they shower. So now we're increasing commercial costs. So now we're going to have businesses moving out. I mean, this is a grave effect of what we are genuinely, truly looking at.
Thank you. Trustee Cannon.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Director Megan, for that presentation. Thank you for the work that you're doing for the town. And to pass along my thanks to all the staff at our treatment facilities. I know the character and caliber of their professionalism, and I applaud that. And I know that they're doing the best that they can. You're right. We all inherited this. 7 years ago, I inherited this when I stepped into the administrator role. And the first time I read the North Pooter contract, my first thought was, who on earth would ever sign this? We owned water. We owned our own water. We had rights to our water. We owned shares that provided for all of our needs. That along with our well here on Wilson Avenue. But the town gave up those rights 40 years ago, gave up those rights, turned in all those shares in exchange for a contract, and which is different than any other community in Colorado. So, and I don't want to beleaguer the fact that our previous leaders maybe lacked some foresight, but they honestly feel they're probably doing what they thought was best. 5 years ago, the cost for North Poudre was about $1.2 million for the North Poudre water, about 1.25 years ago. Not much has changed between now and 5 years ago. Our population has gone up maybe 1,000 people or so. The shares of North Poudre have remained approximately the same price today as they were 5 years ago. The difference is the interest rate, which was a factor in this contract. As you all recall, during COVID, when things started shutting down, the federal government started raising interest rates, to ward off inflation or recession. But the federal government was doing that, and those interest rates is what's reflected in the increased cost on that. And those interest rates, and I've said this before, have nothing to do with North Poudre's ability to fill Reservoir 3. But it is a variable that we're under contract to do. So renegotiating this contract is very important to us. And I've been advised by legal, our town attorney, and yourself as well about the progress on that. And I am happy with the progress. And I think we still need to do this some more. In fact, I even began some initial conversations, 5 years ago with North Poudre about, let's open this contract up and see if we can get it more, a better rate for our customers. Now, the general fund transfers are to keep our residents from having to absorb the cost of that North Poudre contract. We're trying to deflect some of that heavy cost of the raw water delivered to Reservoir 3. And luckily, those transfers are going to be ending in 2025. And I understand where you're coming from as far as extending that. And that'd be a decision we have to make during 2025, whether or not we can continue this. There's a lot of factors that's involved, and there's a lot of people working very, very hard on this process. And I appreciate every comment, online, in public. I appreciate the fact that people are speaking out, because I'm hearing it. I think all of us are. We're all aware of the impact it is. And quite frankly, I turned my irrigation system off at the end of August.
1 minute.
Because I got tired of the extra cost. There's a lot of things that need to be done. There is no one solution for that. It can't be fixed in 1 year. We can't just cut cost to make everything right, because if that happens, we won't be able to deliver any water at all. So I appreciate everything that staff is doing and that this board is doing, the discussions we're having, the compassion we have for the people in our community. Thank you so much for speaking out tonight. We hear you and we understand, and we're looking as diligently as we can for solutions for this. And it's going to take several years to get it fixed. But if we don't do that, the only other solution is to add another $150 a month to everyone's bill to pay for that. And we're not going to do that. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Wiegand.
I appreciate all the comments that we've had here tonight. People are hurting in this town. I mean, I had a $600 bill, $400 bill, and I sure hope I don't have that next year. I know this is going to take a very multifaceted type approach to take care of a lot of the problems that we have. Our rate structure, I definitely think we got to look at that. And I don't know if we can do it this year right now, but this coming year. And when would that actually start? When?
I mean, we can do our best to try and kick off in January. I mean, budget has to be approved, and I will say that there's some timing issues related to the best information we have to go into the study. Well, we're will get us the best results. And we're like inches, months, weeks away from having, more refined numbers about anticipated dollars that we think we're going to have in savings for the water reclamation facility project. That's a big deal. There's some consideration if we're able to continue and move forward, move the needle with the progress on the North Poudre Irrigation Company agreement. That would need to get included. So if we start too early, we're going to spinning our wheels just a little bit. But Q1 for sure, we can get under contract for sure. And we have to determine if it needs to go out to open bid process as well. So that
Okay,
takes time.
perfect. Really appreciate all the hard work that the city, you guys are doing on this. Know you're in between a rock and a hard place. I know our people are in between a rock and a hard place. I mean, going around my neighborhood and seeing what's happened to it compared to what it was a year or 2 years prior to that, and hearing the horror stories of the water bills coming out, it's not pleasant at all. But we're all being affected by it. And like I say, I think we're trying to do what's best for the people at this point. We feel your pain. I mean, we're feeling the pain ourselves too. So it is not fun. So we take it extremely, extremely seriously. But I think we got a good bunch of people in the city that's really trying to do what is right. And don't think they're throwing away money needlessly. So, it's just going to take a little bit of time. Like Trustee Cannon says, it's going to be probably a 2, 3, 4, 5-year period of time to get this thing rectified. So we are working on it.
Thank you. Trustee Daly.
First and foremost, I do want to make sure that everybody listening, and please tell everybody you know who is struggling, and because this is such a horrible situation that we're in. Water rates aren't the only thing that are increasing. This is just part of what's hurting people. This board has approved through our discretionary funds, a grant called a HUG. It's a hardship utility grant, and it aims to provide and pay for 1/4 of the entire year of your essential use. So your indoor use of your home, 1/4 of the year is what the grant is allocated to provide. So that would be 3 months of your essential use, your indoor water use, is what the goal of the grant to help you with. This comes out of our discretionary fund, so it doesn't hurt the water funds that we're trying to protect right now. And that's the big cause. It's of course leading to the rates increasing. The other thing too, as I pulled up the Raftalis study, it's incredibly comprehensive. And that was exactly the goal in hiring them. It's because up to that point, we had studies on this, we had information here. We wanted it all together to show a completely comprehensive look and to look at all types of ratepayers and capital fees. So some of the things that is up for discussion tonight is based off of the water cost of service process and that water cost of service cost. And there are so many categories in here which contribute towards calculating what it actually costs us to deliver water. And that's a lot more than paying for the water. There's so many categories. I'm seeing here right now, 20 different categories that are being considered, including customer service, meters, public fire, administrative, debt service, rate funded capital, that's for the revenue requirements. And then the cost for allocation, including the maximum day, maximum hour, customer, what puts our water at most risk for failure for our entire town. And that is specific categories of use. And we have to make sure that we can cover that in the rate pay. Keep in mind too, that the model that we use right now and this is why I feel like I'm defending it, but I also want to say where it came from. The model and priorities of our current rate structure came from a group of residents. And their goal was to make it equitable. So my water use isn't paying for completely different classes water delivery. that we're covering each of those costs as necessary within those classes, and that's why they were separated. And that's what's shown in the study. If you want more information, it's in the October 4th, 2022 work session packet. It's in many places, but that's where I just happened to find it just now. The other things I want to point out is I'm really excited for the savings that we've found since the last update even. Every time we get this and we have more information that we can put more actual dollars and estimates on have been improving. And that is wonderful news. And overall, it's not wonderful news for each individual that's paying. That's still hard. But the whole condition seems to be improving as we're honing it down. We also approved within this budget, if you notice, a $6 million loan to prevent ratepayers from having to make up that $6 million, and yearly up to about $1 million for the last 3 years now, if you're including this next budget, of us putting money from like tax paying money, right, for sales tax, for example, and putting that towards the water funds, so that that's also money that's not being paid by our utility ratepayers. And with that said, those rates still have to be increasing. So I have to put that perspective out there, because there's like, what are you doing? Do you care? All of those kind of questions that we get. And knowing the millions of dollars that we're supplementing already, and we're still bleeding money. And the income that comes has to come from ratepayers, and it sucks. But it is also the security of our entire town. And I'm so happy to let people know too that there's so many other initiatives and things that we're working on outside of this to help relieve this burden as well. So I appreciate the presentation. I appreciate the improving numbers. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Can I interject real quick? So Trustee Daly mentioned the HUD grant. That HUD grant the funds were depleted back in October. So at this point, if somebody were to apply, we would notify them that we didn't have funds available at this time. But if the board would like us to see if we could find funds elsewhere in the board budget to transfer into the discretionary fund for this purpose, I would be happy to do that for you if that's the direction the board would like.
I encourage everybody to apply. If we see that there's a need there above and beyond the extra money that we already allocated it to this year, I would absolutely want that to come before our board to consider to add additional funds for that.
Okay.
So,
I'll keep you posted.
which means then at this point, how much then has been expensed through HUG? If you have that in front of you. If
You
not,
bet.
I know we increased it a specified amount.
31,500, I believe.
Okay. Yeah,
Good.
so if you need this money and you need help, please, please, please apply for this
Okay.
grant. Anybody out there, I want to hear about it. I want to consider it. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, folks, I think all of us might have a differing view on this very extremely difficult subject. I know for myself, I would consider myself to be a pretty analytical person, and I absolutely understand the projections, the modeling, the cost of the difference in cost of service delivery between different customer classes, single family and multifamily. I very much look forward to a 2025 rate study where we can all come back and have a discussion about this and see if we want to make some changes there, and especially after we get the NPIC contract renegotiation back. But I think it's important to understand that the board doesn't make rate structure changes in a vacuum, right? It's been some very difficult work over, really the last 3 years, 4 years that, between our consultants at Raftellus, the Water Rate Study Roundtable, town staff, the Board of Trustees, there's only so many levers we can pull. And while I would love to wave a magic wand and say that we can magically lower rates and all that, we all bear the burden of ensuring that our water utility remains solvent. So I do want to say thank you to staff for taking the board's suggestion from moving the capital investment fees from 4 to 5%. Development pays its own way. Each lot we sell pays those capital investment fees and helps us displace the burden of cost that all of us feel. To not build would only worsen our position and would only cause rates to be a further increase for all of us. So The idea that we shouldn't build lots or these types of things are not good ideas. I do want to thank staff for the viewpoint grant. Appreciate you guys going after that and the $450,000 in savings on the treatment plant expansions. And I really appreciate the board's support on continuing that general fund transfer, which is the maximum amount that we're allowed to do, 10% of our water revenues out of the general fund as allowed by Tabor. But I also understand that we cannot continue to rob the general fund when we have other infrastructure projects that also need attention. Unless we want our roads to start crumbling and these types of things, the fact of the matter is we cannot just continue to inject the water utility with funds from the general fund. We have got to get the fund solvent. That is the bottom line. So again, while I appreciate that this is difficult for everybody, it's like I said, we all bear the burden of ensuring that the utility is solvent. So like I said, very much look forward to a great discussion in 2025. But folks, this is what needs to be done today. And I support the 5% increase as of now. Future discussions are future discussions.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. A lot of hard work has gone into that, and I mean, it's awesome that we got savings on the plant, things there. Hopefully going to have some pretty good savings on the wastewater plant as well. Commend you guys on coming under budget for that. That was a huge thing and a huge undertaking on you and everybody involved with making that happen. So I commend you guys on that. I understand the rate structure as it is. When it was originally presented to us, we knew this would be something that we would have to do for the next 6 years. We knew the accounts would go into the negative, but they would then pull back out because of these increases. These were all things we knew when we approved this rate structure. These are the things that we've talked about last year at budget season when talking about these rate increases. I think most of us up here have probably lost sleep over this issue in particular. I definitely know I've gotten more gray hairs. We don't take it lightly. It's not great to be in our position trying to lead us out of a situation that this town was put in well before we were here. And yeah, I guess you could say to the people that are concerned about growth that, yeah, growth got us here, but growth will get us out in an essence as well. Because what we're going to be doing, we're going to grow smart. We're going to grow responsibly. The plant was designed to last us all the way up to 25,000 people. 2040 is the projection for that roughly at this point in time. And we also built into those plants easy ways to expand them, so it'll be less expensive in the future. So there's a lot of forward thinking that goes into a lot of all these pieces of the puzzle. I would love to see the new rate study as soon as possible. I think, we do need to get better information, the best information we can get on those plants and their efficiencies and what they cost before going into that study. So I don't want to rush it. But definitely as soon as we possibly can, that's going to be important. Yeah. And the difference in cost of water from a residential unit to a multi-unit, there are so many facets that play into that. When you look at, let's just say a peak usage time, the standalone home is going to use a tremendously larger amount of water in those peak periods, normally watering their lawn or having multiple people taking showers at once, things of that nature, and that puts more strain on the system, which uses more electricity, so on and so forth. So it compounds on itself there. So it does cost more to get water to a single family home than it does to a multi-unit, not just due to distance, but due to strain on the actual infrastructure itself, and things of that nature. So that's one thing to take into consideration that maybe hasn't been discussed before either. Yeah, it sucks. I don't like it. Other trustees don't like it. You guys don't like it. I know you don't. We're doing everything we can, and this is the situation we're in currently. So the 5% is needed. And that's all I have to say at this point.
Mayor, would you mind if I took a moment to address a couple of things that I heard before you guys
Please.
what's the right word? Vote? Debate, whatever. Sorry, I'm an engineer, not a poli-sci. A couple of things I did want to, so I want to come back to Trustee Teets and her, your very aware comment around the discrepancy or the change, the large change that was seen, right, in this update to the model. So one thing I want to note, and I had an opportunity to discuss this with the mayor, and I believe Mr. Cannon, Trustee Cannon was at that meeting when we identified this growth assumption. So in the middle of this, or in the middle of this, late this summer, when we were updating the models in anticipation of the budget season, we implemented a new revenue tab. If you go back to it, so essentially we implemented a new way to calculate and propagate revenues through the financial analysis model. And it was when that happened that there was this growth assumption that got missed, that was not embedded properly. If we go back to, and I was talking with the mayor about this, he was like, yeah, these numbers are far worse than what we saw last year. How that confused me too. If you go back to last year's projections, you would see numbers that were, what was presented in September and October of this year were far worse looking than what was presented in the same time frame last year. And that's what tripped us up and was confusing, because the growth assumptions, I mean, we're tracking everything properly. So it was the fault of myself and the consultant at Raftellus who embedded this new revenue tab in the model, did not catch it until last month, right after the presentation in October. So I do want to acknowledge that it looks like there was some grave error in just this giant swing, which there was, but it was swinging back to the direction it should have been going based on revenue projections from previous iterations of this when we've come before the board in the past. Now, things do still look better because we are saving money, and we do have we realize the $450,000 savings, and we're anticipating additional revenue, and there's an addition, a little bit more general fund transfer. We've reduced some CIP costs, we've moved things around the CIP. So, I mean, there are a lot of other things that would change it now versus what was presented to you this time last year. But fundamentally, I want to say that that's what happened in the modeling effort. It has not been the wrong model for 3 years. This was a new way to calculate revenues. We're trying to make the model better, and it did once we caught that piece. So I wanted to clarify that because it's worthy of an eyebrow raise, for sure. A couple of comments from Trustee Cannon, just a little bit related to the North Pooter conversation a little bit. I do want to acknowledge for sure that, in 1983, the town did get into an agreement with North Pooter Irrigation Company. At that time, the town did own shares of North Pooter, and we traded that for in conjunction with that agreement. That trade of those shares secured the town 275 acre feet, a far higher firm yield of a share of North Pooter than any other, and I probably shouldn't even say this, but than any other municipal owner of a share of North Pooter. The deal that we got for those shares that we traded over was an excellent deal for the town at that time. So I don't want to give the impression that the subsequent formulas used in that contract for the additional 1,500, 1,700 acre feet that we're allowed to use, that probably wasn't such a good deal. But that mechanism of triggering that deal with turning over those shares to North Pooter, providing us firm yield of almost 5 acre feet per share, that's an incredible deal. And to this point, one that we intend to keep, and because that's really important in that negotiation process. And what else did I? Oh, and I also did want to mention, in that 5 years, the market value of North Pooter shares has actually doubled. So it was 125 5 years ago, and it's 250 now. So that also, combined with doubling of interest rate, is not working in our favor. I think, and we will kick off a rate study as soon as possible, because that is consensus.
Thank you. All right, do I hear a motion on this item?
I move to adopt ordinance number 12-2024. No, excuse me. I'm looking at the wrong one. I'm looking at the capital investment one. I move to adopt ordinance number 11-2024, an ordinance establishing fees to be charged by the town of Wellington, Colorado for utility services.
I'll second.
Clerk, make a roll call, please.
Trustee Cannon,
Yes.
trustee Daly,
Yes.
Moyer,
Yes.
trustee Teets,
No.
trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mason,
Yes.
Mayor Shosse.
Yes,
Motion passes 7-1 or 6-1.
thank you. Clerk, will you please read the title for item G2?
Ordinance number 12-2024, an ordinance establishing capital investment fees to be charged by the town of Wellington, Colorado for connection to the water and wastewater utility systems.
Thank you. Ms. Megan Smith will present on this item as well.
Back so soon. Thank you, Megan Smith, Deputy Director of Public Works. The material and background for this item was included in the presentation previously given. I do stand for questions if you have any related to the 5% increase proposed for water and wastewater capital investment fees across all of the customer class categories.
Questions? Trustee Teets.
No.
Trustee Moore.
No questions?
Trustee Wiegand.
No questions.
Trustee Kim.
No questions.
Trustee Daly. Okay. Now it's time for public comment on this item. You're given 3 minutes to speak. State your name for the record. Okay, no public comment. Any further deliberation on this item? No. Okay, do I hear a motion on this item?
I move to approve ordinance number 12-2024, an ordinance establishing capital investment fees to be charged by the town of Wellington, Colorado for connection to the water and wastewater utility systems.
I'll
Second.
second.
Go
Got it.
ahead.
Got it.
All right, Ms. Clerk, make it a roll call, please.
Trustee Cannon,
Yes.
trustee Daly,
Yes.
trustee Moyer,
Yes.
trustee Teets,
Yes.
trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mason,
Yes.
Mayor Shosse.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, Clerk, will you please read the title for item G3?
Fiscal year 2025 budget and capital improvement projects update presentation with public comment.
Thank you. Ms. Patty Garcia, the town administrator, and Mr. Nick David, the finance director and treasurer, will present this item.
Good evening, Mayor and trustees. Patty Garcia, Town Administrator. First, I want to thank you all for your time during this budget process. There have been multiple meetings as a group, individually, with various staff members, and I know that it takes a lot of time for you to review the information. We're trying to put forward the most relevant information for you to review on a regular basis. I also want to thank the staff team that has worked so diligently on this budget, and they've continually investigated options to reduce expenditures, but still provide the services that the residents are expecting from us on a daily basis. As we all know, costs continue to escalate. We just talked about the water rates. This includes expenses related to products, utilities, and infrastructure. Many of our staff live here in Wellington and know very well how the cost of water affects their budget. So we understand what the residents are going through, and we feel for them because we are in the same boat as they are. I want to follow up on a couple of comments that I've heard over the last couple of days related to the general fund and the fact that we are spending into fund balance in 2025. This is due to the transfer of funds to the water and sewer fund of the 10% of the revenues permitted by Tabor. If the transfer was not made, the general fund would be whole. But I understand the need to help and assist our residents. So we are, as far as, we are working very hard to keep our general fund as stable as possible, but as long as we are continuing to transfer those funds, we will continue to have an issue with keeping that general fund whole. Yes, is this better? Okay, thank you. We were having trouble with it earlier, so I didn't want it to make sounds. Our staffing is comparable to other municipalities of our size with similar services. We just completed a compensation study to confirm that our salaries were competitive in our region and for our size of municipality. Wellington has grown exponentially over the years, and staffing has been added to keep up with the growth. We have very dedicated employees who work tirelessly on behalf of the residents of Wellington, and I am very proud of the services they provide to our community. I've understood that there was some comments made on social media about needing to reduce staff, and it's not something that, as town administrator, I support at all. And if that's the direction that I would be requested to go with the Board of Trustees, I would say we need to talk a little bit harder about that. Our staff provides excellent services, and I think those staff members are completely needed in order to continue with the services we provide. I'm going to turn this over to Nick Rediva to review the presentation with you. In his short time with the town, he has done an amazing job on this budget. I've been so proud of everything that he has done. I know he could not have done it without the support and guidance from the rest of the team sitting in the back there. It's certainly been a team effort and collaborating amongst us all hours of the day, every day of the week, trying to figure out where we can cut costs and where we can help the budget and to become as whole as possible. So, Nick, I'll turn it over to you. Sit back here, help you out.
Good evening, Mayor and Trustees. Town Administrator Garcia stated, thank you for your time and engagement with the Town of Wellington fiscal year 2025 budget. Tonight's presentation will provide you with updates and changes made since we last met in October, which are reflected in the draft budget included in the packet for tonight's meeting. Also included are drafts of the ordinance and resolutions that will be brought to you for consideration. We will again open the floor for public comment, and I want to thank the community for the comments already received. First, I'd like to review a timeline of all the work that has gone into the budget process by yourself and staff. Guidance provided by the strategic plan adopted in August, work sessions in September and October, and engagement with residents at the budget bonanza and the upcoming finance committee meeting have helped develop a budget for next year that ensures essential services are provided and we are investing in the future of our community. Not reflected in this timeline is the number of hours staff has poured into looking for additional revenue opportunities, ensuring Excel calculations are correct, and manually creating the comprehensive budget book. We've continued to revise, correct, update, and get better with every version presented. No stone has been left unturned. The updates in the current version of the budget book are included on the next several slides. While I won't go into detail about every bullet point, I would like to call out some specific items. To start, the estimated beginning fund balance for 2025 has been updated to reflect end-of-year projections for admin overhead transfer calculations, increased sales tax projections, and the $450,000 in cost savings at the water treatment plant. These revisions increased the beginning 2025 fund balance to $29.8 million, which is a vast improvement from the $20.6 million projected in the approved 2024 budget. Operations revenue estimates and projections for 2025 were also updated with the recent adjustment to the retail marijuana sales tax, updates that were shared by Deputy Director Smith in the utility rate models, and recalculated admin overhead transfers following review of staffing allocation. We have estimated total revenue has increased over $500,000 since the last version of the budget.
Nick, can you confirm your mic is on? Can you tap it, please? Thank you.
Maybe raise it.
Yeah.
Similarly, we reviewed all expenditures and expenses and found over $150,000 in cost savings across operations. With the upcoming leadership transition, the Larimer County Sheriff's Office Wellington Squad, decision was made to delay the additional deputy and allow the new sergeant the discretion to make recommendations. Staffing was reviewed in Public Works and programming was reviewed in Parks and Recreation. Transfers were calculated based on updated rate utility model revenue projections and includes the maximum allowable transfer of 10% of enterprise fund revenues as directed by the board. Grant funding has been updated to reflect the full $4.4 million received for the Cleveland Avenue project. Capital projects were reviewed to determine which ones were necessities and which could be delayed. And overall CIP spending was reduced by $133,000. This leads to our estimated fund balance, estimated total fund balance in 2025 of $24.8 million. This overview shows all 6 of our funds with the changes. Note that the fund balance spending was reduced by $3.75 million since the last version, thanks to the grant for the Cleveland Avenue, highlighting the importance of these grants to our community. Staff will continue to look for additional grants and revenue opportunities throughout the year, as well as opportunities to cut costs without cutting the services, safety, or needs of our community. Much like 2024 is ending with much like 2024 is ending with Wellington better off financially than was estimated in the 2024 budget, I expect the same of next year. Lastly, the 2 resolutions and appropriation ordinance were provided for your review. Should any changes to revenue, expenses, or fund balances occur over the next few days prior to the final draft of the budget, these amounts will be reflected in the ordinances and resolutions as well. So thank you again for your time, engagement, and leadership. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I'm honored to be joined by my colleagues here tonight who can answer department-specific questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Moore.
Okay, sorry, I was still muted. I'm just super grateful to every department for looking at your budget and finding places that you could adjust. I know that we have our wants and our needs, and I just really am very appreciative to all of you for taking a look and really taking an inventory of what you could do without this year so that we can make our residents more comfortable. Of course, this is always our goal. I don't want to discount any of the hardships that we're all feeling. But at the same time, there is a certain balance that needs to be kept in order to keep our town running. And I just am really, again, appreciative to our staff for being able to take their budget and make the cuts necessary to help alleviate the burden on our residents. So thanks, Nick, or Mr. David, for your excellent guidance in this process as your first time. I think you've done an amazing job. And for all of the department heads for being able, again, to take a look and make the cuts necessary to help alleviate the burden.
Thank you. Trustee Teets.
Yes, so questions, not discussion yet, correct?
Questions,
Oh.
comments?
Okay, so my questions are going to start on page 105. At the bottom of the page, it states that 2027, 1 year's depreciation required. Can you give me more detail on what that is, what it includes, and an estimate of what we're looking at? Is this thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions?
So I don't have that exact information right now, but I'd be happy to follow up and let you know.
Okay. Sorry, I prepared. In the packet, page 74 states that sales tax revenue is proven to be 4% lower year over year. And actual sales tax revenue in 2023 was 2.6 million. On page 108 and budgeted for 2024 was 2.8 million, but estimated amount is coming in at 2.5 million. And our budgeted for 2025 is 2.6 million. So if we are seeing a 4% decrease in sales tax revenue, would we not want to see that number go below 2.5 million?
So the decrease in year over year of 4%, we're still based on the projections for growth in the community. We still anticipate that there would be more sales taking place in Wellington. So
Okay, but it
20
wasn't,
the
it
23
decreased.
actual is more than the 24 actual. That's because of that 4% trend. But we do anticipate that there would still be growth in 25 from what we're seeing right now,
Okay,
year to date.
got it. Estimated numbers on page 144, sorry. Estimated numbers are coming in at 4.9 million for 2024. Sorry, I'm just trying to read my notes here. So 4.23 under budgeted when we have 5.5 million budgeted for 2025. With feedback received from many residents, they do not plan to turn on their irrigation this next spring. So this would be what I'm referring to. If people don't have packets, I'm referring to the estimated revenues in the water fund. So, and that line item specifically is geared towards what we expect to gather in water revenue from our water rates, correct? Got it. So when we know and hear people are planning on not utilizing as much water this go round, we're expecting a wet spring, we're expecting a wet winter, but we're projecting more income coming in. So is what we're projecting is that 5% additional increase. Is that what we're projecting is for that additional income?
This is those projections do come from the rate.
Okay.
Trustee Keith, I appreciate all your questions, but we did request questions that come into us by noon yesterday, so we could be prepared for some of these answers. So if there's a delay or we can't get to you, get the answers right away, we'll just have to bring that at a later time.
That's totally fine.
And just to clarify, so I'm looking at page. sorry,
144. I know, I'm on a time limit.
You're looking at estimated water sales, so you're looking at actual water sales, we're anticipating 5.465. 4.927 in the estimated 2024.
Yes.
Yeah, so that there is growth assumptions built into that, and there is a 5% rate increase built into that.
Got it. So, and when you guys did that planning, it's just mainly for understanding. When you did that planning, did you guys take into account that many people were not gonna be utilizing?
We have seen reduced water usage, and that has been built into the wastewater model in the winter, because we have seen reduced, average winter used to be 4,000 gallons per across the board for residential, and now it's about 3,000 gallons, so that has been reduced. These have been calibrated, so like this year we're calibrated to what we've seen across the customer classes, so usage across customer classes this year. I can't, and then it's making sure that those are in line, those estimates are in line with averages over the last 5 years, and that's what we're based that on.
Got it.
Anticipated the severely wet year that got us, that put us about $600,000 under revenue in 2023.
And see, that's what like hovers in the back of my head is knowing that where we are now, not making it worse in knowing that we have something that's prepared us for that what if, just in case.
Yeah, so we, I mean, and we typically have done, if you remember in 2023, we weren't able to do that in 2024, given status of the new financial staff. In 2023, we did a mid-year rate review, right? So we reviewed where we were. to be able to determine if we could get to where we're going.
Correct.
So we'll intend to do the same kind of thing in 2025.
Perfect. Got it. So it would be once you start noticing a downtrend or any kind of trend, you would notify. Okay, perfect. So, and you guys might have went over this in the meeting. What is BP raw water fee? 3.35 million. Okay, so we're expecting to bring in a 91% increase.
Assumptions based on what we assumed that the building permits that we would pull last year, versus what we're predicting to be able to pull this year.
Perfect. Honest. Thank you. Page 135, economic development. So why do we have any costs or expenditures in this fund?
Development manager hired in our planning department, the redeployment of FTE, and this is going to facilitate some of the.
Okay, so should that money be in economic development though, or should it be in building and planning? To track it appropriate.
Yes, yeah, these expenses, this is a way for us to categorize the expenses. The employee is paid out of planning.
Okay, so we'll just be pulling funds from the economic development for the employee?
Their economic development will be able to be funded from these funds.
Perfect.
1 minute.
That's all of them?
Thank you. Trustee Wiegand.
No major questions. I know this is completely a moving target all the time. There's so many variables out there that we're dealing with and we're making assumptions. And when you're dealing with the weather, when you're dealing with interest rates, when you're dealing with the economy, all the different things that's out there, like you say, all we can do is our best guesstimation at that point. So one thing about it, I think this is still a moving target, even if going through the mid part of the year, if we start seeing some major problems, we can make adjustments at that point too. So it's something that we need to be monitoring and we need to do our due diligence on. So I appreciate what you guys have put together. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Cannon.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. David and Trustee, and Administrator Garcia. Appreciate all the work on this. It's obvious that you heard some of my comments and took those to heart. This is not normal times for the town of Wellington. If it was, I would approve the budget presented in October. But these are times where we have to make sure that we're very judicious in what we spend. Putting a budget together is always a moving target. If it was a crystal ball, it'd be easy, but it's not. And we have the ability to make budget amendments in 2025. But I appreciate all the work that staff has done to review their individual funds. I appreciate the work done by Ms. Smith about looking at the modeling for the to show a little bit healthier situation in our water fund. It's still unhealthy, but it's not as it's not as terminal as it looked earlier. So thank you for all the work on that. And I would like to point out that this is a balanced budget. We are obligated by law to present a balanced budget. And there's different ways to address what a balanced budget is. And I don't know if the town has actually established a balanced budget policy or so forth, but, you know, it's not just a strict adherence to, you know, revenues equaling or being under or being above expenditures. I mean, that's a strict interpretation, but the availability of grants and using reserves and so forth, all of these factors go into making a balanced budget. I appreciate the work that all of you are doing to keep our funds healthy, at least through the next several years. We've got a big road ahead of us as a board, and I would almost recommend that we have perhaps maybe put together a focus group or something about how we can start addressing some of those financial variables and what steps we can take. But thanks for all of your hard work. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Trustee Daly?
I do very much appreciate the change in the business resource manager. I think it's the right fit for economic development of where we're at and what we need. So I'm loving the reuse of that FTE for that purpose. I think that is meeting the needs of the continued smart growth that we need to be doing. So I noted that. I wanted to share my appreciation. I think these are absolutely not regular times. These are incredibly difficult times. We've mentioned that throughout the night for multiple facets. So the question of for our general fund and using, you know, parts of our revenue to supplement our water and wastewater funds is non-negotiable in my mind. If there's an opportunity that we can to give any relief to utility ratepayers, this board has not questioned that once yet. At this point, we will do the maximum amount legally possible to make sure we can provide any relief whatsoever within the law. So that's also indicated in here, and it's a difficult hit to the general fund, absolutely. But we've, I don't know how I'm going to phrase this, but I want to note that obviously sales tax and property tax are our biggest income for general fund. That's how we get our money, right? Imagine what would happen if every household in Wellington committed to buying more local 10% for the year. Like, I'm going to spend, instead of going to Fort Collins, instead of doing this, I'm going to spend that money locally. Like 10% more of what I do. Like, that would be such a massive increase to our budget. And that's really decisions of people who live in Wellington, who would then be reinvesting in their roads, their parks, their library. You know, that's how you show love to your town. And if you want to love the place where you live, you spend your money there. So we are doing the most with what we can with the money we have. But imagine if every single person in our town was committed to keeping their money here instead of giving it to Fort Collins's parks and Fort Collins streets and Timna's Costco, where you're giving money to their capital projects that will set their community up for the future and build their infrastructure. So I want to put that question out there. Just everybody listening, know that you also have a personal accountability and an opportunity to help in the scenario in which we are planning as much as possible. I also want to make sure that we're never getting in a situation where we say many, many, many years ago, there was not great planning and forward thinking when it came to water infrastructure. And now we're in the position where we're having to fix that and it's horrible. And I hate it. We're the position where we're in and what we have to do right now. So, but if all we're thinking about right now is let's fix water stuff and we're letting everything else fall to the wayside, we're going to be in the same position in 20 years from now. They're like, oh my gosh, can you leave that board back there? They passed on any other opportunity to improve infrastructure that was really needed at that time because it seemed like a little too much money at that moment. When 20 years later, it's going to be a disaster. So every time we cut a CIP project, we push it off another year, we're setting ourselves up for that exact scenario. So, I mean, what can we do with the money we have? I mean, this looks like the best I've seen yet. So I'm pretty excited about that. But I just want to make sure when we make concessions, when we find savings, when we move things to a future year, it's not because that's not needed. It's because we're putting it off, which is the exact reason why we're in the water situation that we're in. It's because we were putting it off. So just something to think about when we're considering the costs of things that may seem very expensive now, but what will that happen? What will happen if we keep pushing it off? And what kind of consequences will we have too? So the future planning, I think, of this board, we need to make a very considerate and intentional effort for that future planning, not just right now.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
I don't have any questions. I thank you for the presentation, Mr. Redavid, Ms. Garcia, and Ms. Smith, and the rest of our amazing staff. Interdepartmental cuts are extremely difficult, but at this time, it's something that's also extremely necessary. So I do thank you guys for taking a good hard look at this budget. This is probably the most difficult budget we had to go through in the last 3 years that I've been on this board. And I also want to say thank you to staff for listening to the board and making the cuts that we've recommended. So this has been a difficult process, but it's the most important thing that we do. And so thank you to you guys and appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. David, thank you for putting together this budget. The time went into it, the care, pretty incredible to see you do that with your first year. So thank you for that, and thank you to all the other leadership teams for everything you did, listening to comments from the board, myself, on where to make cuts or our ideas on what might be possible, and you guys doing it to what could be done for us in that situation. I know you can't take everything we say and make it happen, but you guys moved a lot of mountains to be able to come up with the budget that we had before us, and I appreciate the hard work that's gone into that. I will never say you guys don't work hard for us or the town, so I appreciate that. That's all I have to say at this point in time. Now we will open this up for public comment. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak. State your name for the record.
I'd like you to start by saying, I believe I said this before, but it seems like some of you may have not heard me. Thank you, Patty. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Bob, for the conversations that you've had. As far as the budget, 1.8 million is being overspent, best I can tell, in the general fund, the sewer fund, and the park fund. Interestingly enough, that's 6% of the overall budget. So appreciate the work that's been done to cut, and another 6% gets it flat. So I would just like to encourage another look there. I also understand from an exchange earlier, I appreciate your feedback by email, 1.9 million in transfers from the funds into the general fund represent administrative expenses for each of the other funds. That seems real extensive to me. And so, if there's any opportunity there to look at that, that would seem like an opportunity. My comments are not at all a suggestion that hard work hasn't been done. I hope Trustee Moyer is hearing this. Not to suggest that people aren't good and talented people, right? But at the end of the day, we're 6% over in a couple of areas, and I think there's an opportunity to help.
Thank you. Okay, no more.
Raymond. Drive. We do need to have more income in this town generated through sales. I think the Chamber of Commerce, which I'm a member, needs to step up a little bit too. I think you as a board are doing an awfully good job, and you're awfully aware of things. The one thing I would like to see improved is maybe some more attendance at some of the events that the town and or the chamber come up with. I was real disappointed that there wasn't more participation when we had the veterans program over at the fire department. Things like that can generate more money than we think, because we are keeping people in town. Business after hours by the chamber is very important. If we want people to attend these, if we want people to generate more business, they have to know what the businesses are. And a little more activity there, I think, would go a long ways. We do need business development. I'm not sure hiring somebody to do it is the best way. I know Fort Collins has business development through their Chamber of Commerce. And maybe the chamber needs to be more active in that. Instead of spending money, if we can find a volunteer, we have a lot of very talented people here. A lot of people who have intimate knowledge of how this town works and what doesn't work. The town also needs to be very user-friendly when a new business wants to come to town. A lot of businesses steer away from Wellington because they know that it's hard to get things through the town and get them approved and get off the ground. We need more businesses here. We need to attend those businesses. If we do that, we can overcome this fairly quickly. So those are just some ideas I have to share. But thank you guys. You do an awful lot of work. So I know attending one more meeting and one more event is difficult because you do put so much time in, but it is appreciated what you do. I'm not discounting that at all.
Thank you. Okay. Do I hear a motion on this item?
Are we having discussion?
We can have it after.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What am I talking about?
Yeah. Get it together,
It was,
Taylor.
sorry, if it's on the teleprompter, I'm gonna read it.
You shouldn't
Um,
need a teleprompter.
Final comments from the board on this. Trustee Teets.
Okay, so I do have comments. I'm going to use most of my time to share public comment email that was sent in to me, but I have only one suggestion, as it was made note, I think, from every single one of our trustees, that if there was something we could be doing, anything, that we would be doing it. So what I had proposed, and I actually sent out an email and kind of got some feelers about it related to how someone would feel, bringing this up and bringing this to the trustees. So in the 2025 proposed budget, there is only 12,000 allocated for the HUG grant. So in 2024, we exhausted the fund at 31,500. So I feel that probably should be addressed. We are budgeting the disconnect and reconnect late fee line item on page 144, $51,800 is what we're budgeting in reconnect fees. I don't know about you, that hurts my heart a little when I look at that total. So it's 51% higher than 2024. So I would like to address a specific amount of money from our fund balance be directed towards the HUG grant. And what I had suggested was 1.5 million of fund balance. These monies can be allocated to assist offsetting the 5% increase for residents that they will experience this year and possibly address the 5% increase that they experienced the previous year. So this would not be a permanent solution. This would not be a permanent solution. This allocation would improve, so it would not be a permanent solution, but it will immediately assist in decreasing residents' water bills, like instantaneously as of January. So this allocation would improve community trust by holding us accountable to a promise that we made to residents, not just today, but many, many months, that if there was anything we could do to address this, we could and would do this. This offset could be set up in different ways. That's something the trustees could discuss later, whether it's a one-time credit. I know that it was been brought up that it might only be $333 bill credit for every resident, but at the same time, I don't know what $333 means to your income and your household, but to a lot of single parents out there, dads and moms, seniors, that's a lot of money. Or it could be set up as like a generalized fund where if people were wanting it, like I wouldn't be someone who applied for it. I zero-scaped my yard a few years ago. If I can allow someone else to take some of that funds, I would rather that happen. So we could set it up either way, really, or have staff come back to us with suggestions on how they would make to set up that distribution. This is something we can do in this moment. I know people are like, oh, fund balance, but we just found out that we were no longer 6 million negative in the water fund. So I feel a little bit more confident about that. And there is a lot of other items that I wanted to address, but I think this one is one of the most important ones to address at this moment. The average HUG grant amount was 386. This is comparable to the numbers that was expected with a one-time credit to, and this isn't just residents, that could be businesses that needed to apply for it as well. But that way, this could be something. The great thing is this is getting transferred to a HUG grant fund. It's not getting transferred to the water fund, so doesn't qualify in that 10% requirement. So we already supply monies from general fund to the HUG grant. This would just be a lot more to help buffer. I know we'll get the argument that, building whatever CIP project wants to be accomplished at this time, but we have sat here for a year and heard residents say this is one of the most important things to them, is affordability to remain here. Encourage me to spend 10% more of my money. I can't afford it. I would love to support more of the town, but a lot of people sit here and think and hear that and say, we can't even give the 10% we used to give because we don't have the money. So I think that's one of those things that this is an amazing way to agree to assist. We can do it. It doesn't mess with the 10% regulations and allocations. So that's my suggestion for that. So I will read the public comment that I told residents that I would read when I received it. Huh?
You have 5 seconds.
Okay, I'll wait for my board report.
Thank you. Trustee Keenan.
Thank you. In some ways, I feel like I've already said what needs to be said regarding the budget. I do appreciate the work that by staff and by this board. These are not regular times, and we're still constrained by state laws on what we can and cannot do. And I appreciate the fact that we're coming up with all kinds of suggestions to help relieve, the burden on our residents. I ran on 2 platforms. One was economic development, and the second one was addressing our water issues. And I'm comfortable with where we are with addressing the water issues. You can't move much faster than what we're moving right now. But I am hopeful that the negotiations with North Poudre will continue to progress and that we can receive a favorable agreement, which would relieve a lot of the issues, quite frankly, that we're facing in the water and the sewer fund and also in our general fund. Economic development is something that we need to do, and I'll give you an example of why that's important. In 2018, the Board of Trustees at the time made economic development the #1 strategic priority for the town. We hired an economic developer, and within 6 months, we had conversations with multiple commercial businesses, I'm talking about mainline commercial businesses, not mom and pops, to bring more business and more opportunity and more choices so that people could spend more in town as opposed to, choosing to move other place. We have research conducted by Main Street and by this town that tells us where the money is leaking, and it gives us pretty much a roadmap of what type of industries that we need to focus on to increase those sales tax revenues. $140 million is being spent outside of Wellington by our residents. $140 million, that's $11 million in sales tax revenues that we're not getting. But Fort Collins and Timnath and Windsor and other places are. I believe economic development is important. I appreciate Mr. Freeman's comments about knowing our businesses and supporting those businesses. All these events like Veterans Day, which I attended yesterday, and it was a beautiful event, bring business to Wellington. For example, they had a band at the Wellington Manor that, part of this Veterans Day celebration. It was paid for by Main Street organization. And quite frankly, that brought a lot of revenue to a local business that was hosting that event. And the same thing happens at Old Colorado Brewer, where there was other events and so forth. So the events that Main Street puts on are doing exactly what Main Street is supposed to do, and that is to focus more attention on our downtown businesses and find ways to bring more traffic to those businesses. There is no easy push one button and solve things, but we need economic development. The business manager is a good start, but we probably need to have some more strategic thought and discussion as a board about the direction that we need to take. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the comments that people are making about our budget and their concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
I don't have too many comments besides what I had before, but I am going to say, Trustee Teets, I absolutely would not support a transfer of $1.5 million unless your proposal is to get rid of the next 3 years worth of CIP projects in the general fund. Let's just talk about what some of those are: downtown master plan, elevator in the municipal building, housing needs assessment, track F project, ADA community improvements, library outdoor events, shade structure. Sure. Yeah, sure. If you want to get rid of all the next 6 street underground lights, yeah. If you want to get rid of the next 3 years worth of CIP projects, sure. I absolutely would not support that. That's all I got.
Thank you. Trustee Moyer.
Hello from Florida, folks. I would agree with Trustee Mason. I have to say all this, can you still hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so all of this discussion about depleting the fund balance, I don't think that the answer right now would be to allocate 1.5 million to the HUD grant. I would say that I absolutely understand the hardships that our town is going through, and obviously the water is a huge issue. If we've allocated 51,000 in HUD grants this year, and that's all that we've given out based on who's applied, I would say that that's an excessive amount. And again, all of our capital improvement projects are our infrastructure. They're what's going to make our town stronger. And so, again, I would just agree that that's not the best use of those funds. I would also agree with Trustee Cannon in thinking about our economic development and leakage study. Imagine what just a lumber yard would do for our tax revenue in this town. So I just want to say, I do think that that's a focus that we should look at in 2025 and something that I know that our town and staff is focused on as well. Pastor Rick, I absolutely agree with you in that we should be attending all of the things that we possibly can. I promise you, if I were not in Florida, I would have been there yesterday with bells on. I did try and reach out to all of my friends that have given their time and sacrificed for our country. And I just want to take this time, as this is our closest meeting to Veterans Day, to say thank you to everyone that has sacrificed and given of yourselves to make sure that we are free and able to have these discussions like we are tonight. We appreciate you immensely, and you are very much appreciated, and your service to our country is not overlooked, I promise you. The beauty of what you do is, regardless of your political stance, you all have come together to fight for us, and I appreciate that more than I could even tell you. So thank you so much. I promise to be there whenever I am physically able, and again, just thank you so much. Please do not mistake my earlier comments as any disregard to any type of First Amendment rights to speak your mind. I appreciate you for bringing your public comment forward. I just am very conscious of, I'm protective of the information that's accurate, and I want everybody to be as informed as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Wiegand?
Well, first off, I'd like to thank everybody for their thoughts and ideas, and I think we all should take everybody's comments and suggestions to heart. I mean, everybody's trying to look for the best good of the town and for the people here. So, good, bad, or indifferent, we need to hear everything. And even if we can take just a little bit of good out of some comment, that could be a very beneficial thing here. As far as the chamber, Main Street, I would love to see them start working together well and working to bring new businesses into this town. Love to see a Menards come in, but I'm a little prejudiced on that one there. But I mean, you look at some of these communities. I was down in Johnstown this morning, and they got the Buc-ee's there. I mean, they got this huge development going on the east side of the road. If we could get something like that starting here, and I think we could do it if we get the proper economic development people in the chamber and all working together, we could get this going. And my God, that would take any and all, I think, of our dollar problems out of this town. I can't imagine what Timnath is doing right now. I mean, they're trying to figure out ways of spending all their money. I would love to give it all back to the people here, of course, but we got a great community. We're going to get through it. We can, get the businesses developed, and I think there's nothing but for this town to get a whole bunch better. So appreciate what everybody's doing, appreciate what the chamber's doing, what all the veterans are doing here. So it's a great community. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Daly?
Comment that came up in public comment earlier regarding the Cleveland construction project, regarding support for businesses on Main Street, during this legacy amazing project that we're undergoing. It's not the first time that we've heard from businesses who fear for their businesses throughout this process. It's already hard to have a business downtown. And then they're going to be, the face of their business will be part of a construction project for multiple months as well. I know we are going to do everything possible to support them during that time, but allocating funds for that support might not be a bad idea, or understanding that there will be costs associated with that. So whether that, the thoughts that came up tonight were, damage to businesses or buildings, and then recovering lost profits. That might not be exactly how Curtis said it, but that's how I remembered it. So, I mean, I don't have any physical costs or idea of exactly what that would be. And I think we should maximize any money that we did spend strategically with partners who are also undertaking the same tasks. And I think cost sharing of those expenses and that support would be money very well spent to ensure that our businesses survive this season, this construction season that we're going to be going through. One of the opportunities, for example, is Main Street has a very established sign grant, right? So better signage, more business. And they have businesses invest in themselves and then they supplement that cost to provide new signage, including awnings or, you know, anything else that's really promoting their business. Those are kind of opportunities where we could supplement or partner with programs that are already established, already have a application process, already have everything made. So we're not starting brand new. We're not going to try to reinvent the wheel, create a brand new thing with and start something up new, something already established, and then provide our support. And then not only that, maybe we can apply that to outside the Main Street district too and say, hey, here's a process already established with design guidelines and approval processes and checklists of what you need to do with the town for permitting purposes. Would our board be interested in supporting those efforts too, so that more businesses could benefit from a similar grant kind of program? So these are the questions I have. I think there's opportunities out there. Do I have a dollar amount? No, I don't. But I think that as these scenarios arise, we should consider amending or supporting those in the future if there is a need found. So that's something I learned from public comment that it kind of reiterated something I've heard otherwise, but I wanted to make sure to bring that up. Otherwise, the topics I heard through public comment are similar to what I've heard in the past. And I think a lot of those similar points, even though they may not be seen at the bottom line and what you're seeing, have been considered for the budget that's before us, unfortunately. I love seeing Main Street's, the chamber and the town working on all these projects together. There's so many that they're already coordinating with. There's so much more opportunity to, again, use that strategic partnership and explode the effort and money and dollars that every one of those programs is putting into everything to make sure we're maximizing it strategically. And showing up is a big part of it. Building community, knowing who owns what businesses and how much you want to support them, being part of that community. Being part of the chamber is always really important. I like going to their ribbon cuttings and saying, thank you for considering Wellington for your business. Thank you for investing in us. And, you know, everyone here at your ribbon cutting from the chamber is here ready to support you and excited to do that. And I would love to see more board members there. It's slim pickings a lot of the time. And it would be really nice to have your support at a lot of those things as well. So I know scheduling's hard, but whenever possible, be there. Otherwise, I kind of stand behind all my other items, and I feel like a lot of the public comment I heard reflecting on that is really reiterating a lot of the points I made before and some of those priorities. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think collaboration be huge. Chamber, Main Streets, the town, all working together for the common good. Kind of heal maybe past wounds or breaks that have been between those parties. I think would go a long ways. Another thing that nobody has brought up tonight is another way for sales tax revenue of this town is Amazon.
Yes.
Just so everybody's aware of that. Amazon sales tax does go to the town.
Or any online sales.
So just because you can't, you know, next day stuff happens, even same day now is starting to happen. So very, very viable there. Agree with economic development. I think that there's things that we can amend next year if things come up where we need to move more money into the HUD grant, or we need to think about funding for downtown businesses or some sort of safety net to damages or grant opportunities, something of that nature to help out those areas. Other than those items, I don't have anything further to say on this. All right. Clerk, will you please read the title of item G4?
Resolution number 56-2024, a resolution approving a contract renewal with V Lake Productions LLC to provide a fireworks presentation on July 4th, 2025.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly Odling will present.
Hey, good evening, Mayor and Board of Trustees. Before you tonight is the contract renewal with V Lake Productions for 4th of July. So with this item, there is a kind of a breakdown into the different elements that are we do on 4th of July. So there's the fireworks itself, which includes equipment rental, insurance, and permitting. And I included that in the memo, the breakout that's in there. And then the video screen, and the projector is another component of that. And then also there is a pyro musical sequencing, and then it's also transmitted over radio. So I did want to just break down those costs. I know the Board of Trustees discussed at the budget workshop on October 11th about just wanting to see the full breakout of those different aspects of the show. And so that is in your packet tonight. And then I will also note that this original contract was a multi-year agreement with the option to renew, but we will need to bid this out next year. And so that will be available to any interested company and posted on BidNet at that point. But we do have the option to renew for 2025. Are there any questions from the board?
Thank you. Trustee Moore?
Sorry, I had to find my unmute. I do have a question. I thought we had discussed removing the video.
So that was a part of the discussion of the Board of Trustees at the workshop. So I wanted to make sure to bring this during a, another meeting so you can see the complete breakout for the board to discuss that.
Thank you. That would still be my recommendation.
Thank you. Trustee Teets?
I don't have any questions related to that. So I will say the video presentation that is done is thanking soldiers for the 4th of July. It's one of the things that if you ever speak to anyone, they talk the most highly about that we do differently than any other community is we offer a chance to educate and teach and reach out to the community related to soldiers, how we got to where we were. I know this has been pushed for years trying to remove this video. And every year, if it comes back to me, I'm sorry, but we sit here and preach and say that we support veterans and awesome Veterans Day. And then we want to remove the video that honors veterans. That's my 2 cents on it.
Thank you. Trustee Wiegand?
Thank you for that. I think we got a great program going on here, and love to do it.
Trustee Keenan?
Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate this presentation. $4,700 for a video is a drop in the bucket on a budget our size. One of the things that was communicated to me very early on when I first moved to Wellington was just how important and how proud the community was for its 4th of July celebration of the parades, that hometown feel, the fireworks. It's an all-day event. I have no problem with including video in future 4th of July's.
Thank you. Trustee Daly?
4th of July is the heart of Wellington. And people come far and wide to come to our 4th of July celebration. When I think of Wellington, I think of the parade and everybody downtown and fireworks later. It's expensive. So I don't know if people know exactly. I'm glad we're highlighting it, over $50,000 for just the fireworks portion of this of this event, not to mention all the other expenses, traffic related and well beyond that go into the investment for this festival. So I'm glad that we're highlighting the costs. I don't have any questions though. And we asked for it to be broken out, so I appreciate that.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Absolutely support the contract as proposed.
Thank you.
Mayor, can I just say something?
It, can I say my piece real quick?
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely, sir.
Thank you. So to put context to the discussion of removing the video, it would be to squirrel that money away so then we could afford our own screen and projection setup down the road. So we wouldn't have to be paying this. So yeah, I would be removing it. It would hurt in the short term, but in the long run has potential to be used not just for the 4th of July, but for other events. So that's the background of that conversation, just so people don't think that it's blatantly wanting to remove a video of veterans or anything of that nature. So I wanted to clear the air there. I don't have any issues with this as it sits, based off of everybody else's comments. Trustee Moyer?
I don't either, and thank you for bringing that context.
Yes, you're welcome. We'll now open this up for public comment.
Wait,
Any
wait, wait.
public-
I'm sorry. I was muted on one device. We do pay for the date to be changed on the video year after year. And so that was my concern. If we could bring a more universal video that we aren't paying to have updated, I think the cost to update the date on the video is considerable. And the video stays the same year after year. That was my only consideration when we're looking at such a tight budget.
Video wasn't the same last year. They changed the entire video.
Yeah, so I think, thank you, Trustee Moyer. Did that clarify anything for you? Okay. Okay, so now it's time for public comment. Anybody who wishes to speak will be given 3 minutes. State your name for the record.
Like to Rick Freeman, 7425 Viewpoint Drive. I would like to say that I, as a veteran, think that's probably my highlight for the event. I think it recognizes in our country and how great it is, and it does change every year. There's no duplication. It's very well done. Now, in the future, it might not be a bad idea to look at a group, if some group was willing to take that on as a program themselves and do something like that. I could certainly support that. But doing away with it at any time, I think it's not a good idea. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, do I hear a motion on this item?
I make a motion to approve resolution number 56-2024, a resolution approving a contract renewal with B Lake Productions LLC to provide a firework presentation on July 4th, 2025.
Second.
If we could have some deliberation, please.
Oh, sure, yeah.
That's some feedback.
Thank
There we go.
you. Trustee Daly.
Okay, I have loved our 4th of July. Like I said, it is my favorite thing in our entire town. And I watch the fireworks every year. Fiscally, I don't think it makes sense to spend $5,000 year after year after year after year after year That's a significant investment if we think about that. The purpose behind the video, absolutely, I'm behind that. So if this is really important, and it has been every year, and I think that we should approve it, but I don't think that this is sustainable, and I think there's alternate options. Having our own screen, we could do movies in the park every week. We could host other events. We could have it everywhere, and it could serve our entire community year round, over and over and over and over and over again. And I think there are other options of people to partner with that would also do as beautiful of acknowledgement to our veterans. So I stand behind veterans 100% of the time. I was at as many events as possible yesterday, to be honest. And there are many ways that we can appreciate them and celebrate them. Absolutely. I think we need to be smarter going forward, because I've been here, 5 years now? And so that means $25,000 for videos. And I just think we could do that better. I think we could do it better and have more use for it. So I think that we should actively pursue other options beyond this year. And I know we're going to be looking at and bidding this out anyway. I think we should reconsider what our requests are and how we're allocating our money for the entire community all year round, celebrate veterans multiple times with something similar. So that was the points I wanted to bring up. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Teeth.
Yep. So I know it was said that it was requested that this be broke out, the 4,700. The 4,700 has been broke out because this has been something that has been tried to gotten rid of probably the last five years. I remember speaking in public comment related to this item.
Trustee Moyer, I don't know if you have something that's not muted, but we're getting some feedback from you.
I just muted her.
Okay, go.
So I know it was requested, and I'd have to go back and look last year who it was requested by, but the same amount and what the costs were was brought up last year and the previous year as well. So if this is something that is being looked at for a screen and projection, it's $4,700. How much, if we look at the cost of it, when you go to look at purchasing a screen, is that not something that could be allocated towards a budget? And then once we have the screen and have everything in hand, then we can continue with the planning, not remove it for the year and then look at addressing it again next year. Let's be proactive and say, we'll continue to keep this until we have a budget and that budget is approved for that amount of money. That would be definitely my suggestion on this. I don't know. And this is more towards the public. If you have not had the opportunity to go down and sit in the park, and I missed it for years. I've been here over 22 and I never knew they have an entire ground show that goes off at the same time as the air show goes off. So if you have an opportunity to meander down there and see people come early to watch this video, and some people leave when the video is done because it's too late and kids have to be up, but they make time to come to this video. That is what's important, so important to this community. And it's been something that I was not aware of previously, but the gathering is community. Why we haven't invited a food truck or someone like that to come and sit down there? Idea for anybody. So, I mean, eating down there after the event would be absolutely fantastic. Candy, cotton candy. I think we had that once, but I don't know if it went anywhere, but having treats and items like that could be a revenue generator for our community because there's nothing down there. There's no food, there's no drinks, there's no nothing when you sit down there, but it's worth every penny of investment. And that's pretty much my statement on that one.
Thank you. Trustee Moyer.
I gotta go in and unmute.
Sorry, I'm trying to avoid feedback. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so the video is 4,700 by itself, and then sequencing to the fireworks is 6,600 for $11,300, which is a lot. And again, just back to my point, if this is where we want to spend our money, that's fine. I am all for the veterans. I support them. I like do as much as I can throughout the year to support them. I have no problem celebrating the veterans. However, I do think, and this is what came up in our discussion, whether anybody wants to acknowledge it or not, that we talked about better uses of these funds to make a more sustainable use of them moving forward, to be able to incorporate them throughout the year. So that would be my preference, but I am absolutely behind whatever the board decides.
Thank you. Trustee Keenan.
Thank you. I would recommend we approve this contract the way it is. We're going to have for bid next year. And it gives us time to try to answer some of those questions that have been brought up, and they're very valid questions. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Wiegand.
Just like trustee Cannon, ready to approve it.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you. Okay. Clerk, make a roll call, please.
Trustee, yep, yes, we did. Trustee Cannon,
Yes.
trustee Daly,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
trustee Teets,
Yes.
trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mason,
Yes.
Mayor Shosse.
Yes. All right. Clerk, will you please read the title for item G5?
Resolution number 57-2024.
Thank you. You can,
We're gonna swear in.
oh, yeah. All right, Ms. Garcia, Town Administrator, will present on this item.
Okay, I'm happy to introduce Anna Hill as our town clerk. She comes to us from the town of Johnstown, and formerly from the city of Loveland. So has some amazing experience. She is already tackling liquor licensing, car requests, all the things that I've been trying to do and just trying to get it done, and she's doing it effortlessly. She's also been working with our town attorney on a proclamation policy so that we can, as we move forward, we have a policy in place that the Board of Trustees can rely on and make decisions related to proclamations moving forward. So hopefully that'll be ready here shortly for your review and approval. But part of the formal action is approving the resolution and also the swearing in of our new town clerk.
Thank you. Any questions from the board on this item?
Welcome.
I don't have questions, but I have comment. Is that
Go for it.
I had the pleasure of getting to interview this young woman and reviewing her resume. Honestly, it was impressive, way more than we could have ever asked for. She has education that is based out of stuff that we would have had to most likely pay someone else to go to the schooling to do the education. And this town clerk already comes on board with a lot of what Ms. Garcia said would help assist in supporting her in her role. So I'm extremely grateful and excited to welcome you on board.
Thank you. Trustee Keenan?
Don't take all of our budget discussions to heart. You know, we're doing the best we can. So I don't want to dissuade you, but welcome aboard.
Trustee Moyer?
Welcome.
Trustee Wiegand?
Welcome.
Trustee Daly?
We're really happy you're here.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Welcome to Wellington, and great to have you on board.
And Johnstown may have Buc-ee's, but we now have their old town clerk.
Yeah, I mentioned she is a master municipal clerk, which is the highest designation you can get as far as the clerk designation.
Awesome.
So I'm gonna swear her in real quick.
Resolution to pass?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. Do I hear a motion on this item?
I move to approve resolution number 57-2024, a resolution appointing a town clerk.
I second.
Clerk, make it a roll call, please.
Trustee Cannon,
Yes.
trustee Daly,
Yes.
trustee Moyer,
Yep.
trustee Teets,
Yes.
trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mason,
Yes.
Mayor Shosse.
Yes.
Repeat after me. I, Hannah Hill, do swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Colorado, the laws and ordinances of the town of Wellington, and will faithfully perform the duties of the office of town clerk, on which I'm about to enter to the best of my ability.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right. Mr. Sapienza, any reports from the town attorney?
No reports at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Garcia?
Very quickly, I wanted to mention, trustee Daly had talked about supporting the businesses downtown during construction. It is something we are actively pursuing and reviewing. The town of Eaton is currently going through a similar project, so we've been talking to them. We've talked to the town of Estes Park, the city of Loveland. There's been a couple municipalities that have had some downtown projects, so we've got all kinds of ideas. We just need to kind of put it together and see what might be a best fit for the town of Wellington moving forward. So we are actively engaged, trying to get something in place, Q1, hopefully maybe Q2, just so that gives something for the Board of Trustees to discuss and decide if, about direction. And then something for adoption, probably with a budget amendment. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, board reports. Trustee Teets, I know you're itching.
So, no, it's not so much itching as it's just, I would like to, I had items emailed me today. So it's known I am extremely active on Facebook. It's where I interact and have a lot of residents reach out to me. Typically, if it's questions I can't answer, they get passed on to town staff. Some questions I can answer and I answer when I can. But I did tell them that if they did send me their public comments, I received 4 where it was requested I read it in public. So I'm just going to read the 4 that were requested to make sure that I am honoring what I committed that I would do. So, and this says, Dear Ms. Sherelle Teets and Board of Trustees, I'm writing to express my concerns regarding the recent overspending in the town's budget and the proposed 5% increase in water rates for next year. As a resident and business owner in the Fort Collins area, I would love to one day consider expanding my business to Wellington. However, the unpredictability in local budgeting and the rising cost of essential services makes it difficult to envision sustainable growth here. The existing water rates already place a heavy burden on local families and businesses, as our town reportedly has some of the highest water costs in the country. Raising rates further only exacerbates this issue, especially as many in our community face rising expenses in other areas. Additionally, I feel compelled to share that many in our town are losing trust in our leadership. The pattern of overspending and increasing financial strain on residents is deeply concerning. I believe this board has the opportunity and responsibility to rebuild that trust by improving transparency, reducing unnecessary expenses, and demonstrating a commitment to fiscal responsibility. I encourage a thorough review of the budgeting process to address and correct the root causes of overspending before considering any further increases in costs for residents. Focusing on transparency and accountability can go a long way towards restoring trust and building a welcoming environment for both current and future business owners. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I look forward to seeing progress that reflects the community's best interests. Sincerely, Julie White. And I apologize, Julie, if you're watching, I butchered your comments, but I did the best I could. The next one is, Dear Board of Trustees, I am writing to express my growing concern regarding the current direction and financial management of the town of Wellington. Having been a resident here for 13 years, I have witnessed both growth of our community and the increasing financial responsibility that falls on our board. I feel that these financial decisions are not being approached with a level of caution and fiscal responsibility needed to ensure Wellington's long-term stability and well-being. In my opinion, there appears to be a disconnect between the recommended budgetary guidance we receive from third-party consultants and the implementation of those suggestions. A proposal or recommendation should serve as a point of consideration, not a commitment. I urge the board to critically assess these recommendations in light of the direct impact on our community residents, particularly when it comes to rising utility costs. We are now in the third year of a 5-year water rate increase proposal, which I believe has been implemented without adequately balancing the burden placed on the Wellington residents. As trustees, I ask that you reflect on how your decision would translate if applied to your own household budgets. If the town were a private business, would it not be bankrupt? Just because Wellington operates as a municipality does not mean we should treat the town's finances as a limitless resource, raising rates and potentially resorting to property tax increases as the stopgap for fiscal mismanagement. Wellington, unlike Fort Collins, Loveland, or Cheyenne, does not have the same diverse tax base to support unchecked spending. We do not have significant industry, tourism, or hotel and lodging revenue. We are a bedroom community dependent primarily on resident contributions. If Wellington were a private entity, financial constraints would necessitate a reduction in spending, merit increases, and possible headcount. Prudent and responsible fiscal management would be a priority. As such, I urge the board to adopt similar principles in budgeting for our town's future. It's time for a strategic shift. Wellington's residents deserve a governance approach that prioritizes sustainable spending, avoids continuous rate increases, and considers the unique nature of our community. I encourage the board to consider cost-cutting measures, reevaluate planned spending, and prioritize Wellington's long-term fiscal health over short-term solutions. Thank you for attention to these concerns. I look forward to seeing the board take the decisive steps towards responsible financial management for Wellington. Securely, James Raymond. I think I only have one more. Dear trustee and staff, I wish I could attend the meeting tonight, but hopefully you will consider written comment and decision-making as well. I used to be on the finance committee and have witnessed mismanagement of funds in our town for a while. I know that many of you work really hard to responsibly steward our town finances, and I truly appreciate that. But what I am seeing in tonight's agenda is really concerning. As a citizen, I am requesting cutbacks for town staff salaries and no salary increases for 2025, and cutbacks for unnecessary expenses like town-funded parties and lunches for staff. While I know it is so important to develop a strong workforce dynamic and retain staff, I think staff will unfortunately have to feel the growing pains and high costs the rest of the town is also facing until we can catch up financially. We just can't afford what other similarly sized towns are offering for salaries because we do not have the benefit of the excess revenue. Treat this like your own personal budget. We cannot spend more money than we do not have, and we have to be extremely intentional with every penny. Unless it is an urgent, necessary expense, do not spend. As much as it is a bummer, because it is, we cannot give additional money to things like the library or local clubs or organizations at this time. Our budget decisions cannot be determined by what will make us look good as a town. Our budget needs to be determined by what is going to help our residents the most. Other than that, I have no further board reports.
Thank you. Trustee Moyer?
Sorry.
Hello? Yeah, but there's so many issues every time.
Sorry, I said I have nothing.
Oh,
Nothing for you.
thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Have a good night. Trustee Wiegand,
No report.
Trustee Cannon, Trustee Daly.
On the comment of supporting the or businesses on Main Street, I also spoke with SBDC Small Business Development Center. They were hosted recently by the Chamber at Owl Canyon, which was an amazing event where tons of business owners came, most of them not even from Wellington. It was a really cool crowd, and it was cool because I got to meet all kinds of people. But they said that they have some case studies on Estes Park and others, and they would be willing to come and talk to us or, just have an informational session as another opportunity to engage with Wellington residents, businesses and things to kind of show what Estes Park has done. That was the specific one that they mentioned too. So you guys are already on top of it and looking at it. Sometimes it means more when it comes from different people. It's like I tell my kids all day long to do something, but then they hear it from their best friend and they're like, oh my gosh, Mom, did you hear this most amazing idea that you never would have? And I was like, that's so weird. I just told you that yesterday. So I think the same kind of ideas coming from multiple groups would be beneficial in case people were not wanting to hear it from Mom and Dad. So they offered that as an opportunity. So another resource for doing the same thing that you guys are already doing. So thank you guys so much for doing that. This Friday is Mingle on Main, which happens every month. It is a super grassroots kind of get together that happens once monthly. And there's a theme every year. Last one was Zombie Crawl, which is one of my favorite things ever. This one is going to be honoring our veterans. And part of that is going to be fundraising for the project that the Pros Board, Parks, Recreations, Open Spaces, Trails, I said that one twice, is doing a Veterans Memorial and Community Park, speaking of veterans. And so they will be collecting donations at all the participating businesses on Main Street and beyond in Mingle on Main towards that cause. In addition to that, there was a fundraiser that occurred yesterday as part of the Veterans Day activities at Old Colorado that raised probably around $1,500 towards the Veterans Memorial. And it was super fun. And it was on the list of, official events for Veterans Day that was being communicated out. So it is amazing to see the whole community getting behind this. And tomorrow is a great opportunity to make a habit out always shopping on Friday nights and being out in Wellington on Friday nights. There's fun things to do, activities. It's super family friendly. I suggest everybody come out for Mingle on Main. It's also, promoted by Wellington Main Streets program. I had the opportunity on Saturday to be the master of ceremonies for a Christmas Carol, a gala for the Wellington Community Services Center as a fundraiser hosted by Chateau Wellington and many other Wellington sponsors, including Ridley's. And it was amazing. First National Bank, Meridian, and a ton of people independently who love Wellington, seeing them to come together, join their resources towards an amazing cause to bring more services and a home for our food pantry. It's a project that is well underway, has already been supported by the county for $500,000, already been supported by our board. And they need additional funds to create this building to house the food pantry and so many other additional resources, including mental health resources for the town of Wellington. So I would suggest that you support them. And I'm so honored that I was given the opportunity to participate and facilitate the gala that occurred on Saturday. Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Cannon.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I also attended the gala on Saturday night. You did a marvelous job hosting that. It was a wonderful event, and they raised over $40,000 that night for the community center, and great effort.
It's awesome. Mayor Pro Tem, nothing. Okay. All I have is our football team, right? Playoff game. That'll be here. So second. Yep. So keep an eye on that and support them. Thank each and every one of you for everything. We make it work together, and it's the only way we're gonna get things done. So I appreciate you guys and staff. Appreciate each and every one of you for all of your hard work, late hours, early mornings. dealing with my phone calls. So other than that, no further business. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
The roll call, please. All in favor? I now adjourn the regular meeting, time being 9:49.